Good evening, and welcome to a meeting of the Council of the City of Long Beach held Tuesday, May 21st, 2024 at 7 p.m. We'll have a roll call as soon as I get my screen update. 1 second. There we go. Councilmember Bendo.
Present.
Councilmember Lester.
Here.
Councilmember Reinhardt.
Present.
Vice President Fiamara.
Present.
President Finn.
Present.
Let the record indicate the presence of City Manager Dan Creighton and Corporation Counsel Frank DeCranis. We'll now have a salute to the flag.
Harvey, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Our City Manager, Dan Creighton, will lead off with his report.
Good evening, everyone. Although we have a pretty short agenda tonight, we have a capital plan presentation as well as the changes to the budget hearing. So I'll keep this shorter than usual. Just to highlight some of the items from last weekend, we had a great turnout for the reopening of the Pacific Playground. Thank you to DPW for their tremendous work in getting this project done on time and on budget. And thank you to the many CSEA employees who have made the event a success by both cleaning and preparing the playground for children, and our events department for making it such a great reopening for the parents and children who attended. The kids seem to love the new park, and we are happy to have the playground back open for them prior to the summer. Next up is Sherman Brown Park this fall. The city also worked with the Arts Council to pull off a very successful Porch Fest. This was the second time it was done, and we hope to continue it as an annual event. Hundreds of residents were able to travel around the town, enjoying great local music at 6 different houses throughout the city. This is a tremendous undertaking for the Arts Council and has been very well received, so thank you to all of them. This weekend is Memorial Day weekend, which marks the opening of our beach for the season. If you've not already purchased your passes, now is the time. We're again strongly encouraging everyone to go digital. It's better for the environment, saves you time waiting online, and you don't have to worry about losing your pass as it lives on your cell phone. For more information about the digital passes and all things Ocean Beach Park, please visit our website at longbeachny.gov and /beach. On Saturday, the Farmers Market and Arts in the Plaza will be back in Kennedy Plaza from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And on Sunday, we'll hold the annual City Managers Race to Remember, which kicks off at 8 a.m. on Park Avenue at Laurelton. Registration begins at 6:30 a.m. at the Boardwalk on Laurelton. On Monday at 10 a.m., please join us in the Joint Veterans Organization for our annual Memorial Day Parade. It steps off at West Beach Street at Ohio, proceeds to Park Avenue via New York Avenue, and concludes at City Hall, where a ceremony will be held. This year's Grand Marshals are Marty Heeb, Bob Costigan, and John Hughes. I want to thank all of our veterans for their service, as well as their families for sacrificing their family time with members to protect our freedom. Lastly, I want to acknowledge that this week is the 50th anniversary of EMS Week. We are beyond thankful to all of our emergency medical service providers and first responders for their sacrifice and service to our community. Again, thank you to all of them. And I'll conclude the City Manager's report with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Okay, our first item this evening is a public hearing for the purpose of giving citizens an adequate opportunity to publicly present their views on the general summary of the capital improvement program for a 5-year period from July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2029.
So the first item, obviously, is a presentation of the capital budget by our DPW Commissioner, Joe Fabrizio.
Do you have the first slide, Dave?
Hold on, switching them now.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, good afternoon or good evening, everyone. My name is Joe Fabrizio. I'm the Commissioner of Public Works for Long Beach, and I'm here tonight to give a presentation on the 2024-2025 capital budget and 2024-25 to 2028-29 capital improvement plan. Just so you know that the plan itself is available, it's on the website, and this will be available on the website right after I give the presentation. Plus, I also have about 10 copies up here for anybody who wants them, so feel free to grab one. Tonight, I'm going to take you through the capital budget process. I'm going to go through types of borrowing. I'm going to go through some successfully completed projects, some projects in progress, upcoming capital projects, an overview of all projects in the proposed capital budget, and then I'm going to turn it over to Q&A. So that being said, I'm going to start with the first slide. And the first question is, why do we do a capital budget/plan? Well, the reason we do that is because it's required by Article 6, Section 101D of the City Charter. The 2024-25 capital budget and 24-25-28 capital improvement plan advances projects that improve the health, safety, and quality of life of city residents. The projects address issue in a priority order, making government more efficient and responsive. Projects this year include a commitment to roads and drainage, shoreline, transportation, public safety, buildings, grounds, parks, equipment, technology, sewer, water, and economic development. Next slide, please. The process. The one way I could summarize the process is we have a lot of meetings. Just, we meet with the city manager, I meet with the city controller, I meet with the department heads, I meet with the staff, I meet with the city council, and just when you think there's no more meetings, we have more meetings. So it's a really, really rigorous process. And again, it starts in January 2024. We basically, the controller and I send out budget sheets and capital project summary forms to all departments to fill out. In January, February 24, we have, again, meetings and meetings and more meetings. In March 24, the city controller, city manager, and I, we conduct meetings with department heads and commissioners regarding the proposed projects. Next slide. In March 24, during that same time period, I perform a comprehensive analysis of all of the capital budget lines in the city's accounting program, Munis, to see what funds are available that haven't been utilized. In April 24, again, we have more meetings. And then on Tuesday, April 16th, we actually publish the capital budget. And then tonight, we have the hearing. And hopefully, if all goes well, I'll address your concerns. And if everything goes well, the council hopefully will adopt the plan. Next one. Okay, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Really, the only reason I have this slide is I wanted to explain the types of bonds that are utilized to fund our projects. It's generally the first one. It's called general obligation bonds. Essentially, the city borrows money in order to acquire land or equipment or construct buildings and improvements. It enables the cost of capital assets to be borne by the present and future taxpayers receiving the benefit of the capital assets. Next slide. The capital plan breakdown. It's broken down into the general fund, the sewer fund, and the water fund. Next slide, please. Okay, now I'm going to go through a whole bunch of successfully completed projects. Bear with me. It's a little lengthy because we have a lot of work going on. This map, I started doing this when I started here in 1986. It basically, all the colored things you see in there, the bottom line is it represents roads that have been repaved. So since 1986, we've, out of 53 miles, we've actually paved 38 miles, which is approximately 80%. So our goal is obviously to pave all of the roads, but again, I'm proud of the work I've done here. I've been here since I was 17 years old, so this just kind of highlights that, and we update this every year. Next slide. So these are, again, successfully completed projects. We overlaid over 20 streets last year on a cost of approximately $1.5 million. On the right, this was Taft Avenue, the before picture. On the top right, you can see the road is in terrible shape. A lot of asphalt patches on a concrete road. It's uneven surface. Bottom right, the after picture, you can see it's a nice smooth riding surface. This was done probably about 2 weeks ago. And I think the residents on Taft are quite happy. Next slide. Okay, it's another successfully completed project. This was Resilient Connectivity Phase 1. It's Park Avenue from Long Beach Road to Grand. It was undertaken by Suffolk County Paving at a cost of $748,888. And 50% of the funding, or $374,444, was reimbursed from New York State Department of State. The key components of it, the top 3 photos there, is new signage and new variable message signs that you see when you're going down Park Avenue. One's at Lindell and one, I think, is at Riverside and Park. And we also had new crosswalks, lane markings, etc. Next slide. Tideflex valves. J. Anthony Enterprises installed approximately, I think, 8 Tideflex valves at various locations for $166,535 with funds from the capital budget. The top right photos is the new 48-inch inline valve that was installed at National. That was to prevent flooding on National Boulevard. On the bottom left, we have a new valve at Farrell. And the bottom right, I thought was very interesting. That's the valve that was removed on Laurelton Boulevard. You could actually see all the barnacles that are growing in there, rendering it essentially ineffective. So that was part of this project to replace that. Next project. This is one of my favorites. This was done the tail end of last year. It was a reconstruction of Magnolia Park and Leroy Conyers Playground. It was $1,150,428 undertaken by PlaySites plus Surfaces. It was funded through a grant from the Dormitory Authority of the State of New York for $1 million. And I think, Patty, we got the extra $150,000 for the project through CDBG. So actually, it was 100% funded through grant funds. On the top left, you see the before condition right after Sandy. We had rehabbed it. 10 years later, we had to rehab it again. And you can see it's really beautiful. It's really, I went by there a couple of weeks ago, and it's a sunny day. It's packed. You have new shade shelters, new safety surface. It's ADA compliant. It's really beautiful, new gem and crown jewel in the city. And part of the project was reconstruction of Leroy Conyers Playground, which you can see on the bottom left there was shuffleboard courts there. We replaced those with 2 toddler units and new safety surface. So now it gets a lot more use. Next slide, please. This is actually one of my favorites. And I want to spend a little bit of time on this because it's work that the city staff does in-house. Our CSEA members back there, thank you. The top is our water transmission department installing what's called a 10-inch Insta valve. It's a patented process by this company called Hydrostop. And our guys were trained in this. So led by John Mooney, Dennis Johnson, and Mike Longin in that department, they actually can do this work in-house. It probably costs a contractor, if we had to pay a contractor to do this work that they're showing on the top there, it's probably $25,000 to $30,000. They do this on a regular day of work, right? And it's really unbelievable that they do this. I don't think any other municipalities in this area can do it. On the bottom, we have some projects done by our capable in-house beach maintenance department. We have a lot of talented carpenters and talented workers. On the bottom left, this was a new crossover that we built at National Boulevard and Long Beach Road. What happened is after Sandy, we had only 2 access points. We had New York and we had Pacific. So we actually asked the DEC if we could build 2 more. We got permits for it, and we only recently got the permit. So for a small cost of about $18,000, our city forces did this work in-house. And it would normally cost about $110,000 to do that work, so it was like a $92,000 savings. Also on the bottom left, they reconstructed the dune east of Pacific Boulevard. Again, they did this work in-house. Cost the city about $160,000. Estimated private construction about $430,000. They planted the dune. They trucked in the sand from surplus areas. They really did a great job. And on the lower right, Laurelton Boulevard to Neptune, they're building a sand screen wall. And what that does, that wall is keeping the dune from overtaking the maintenance area. So because if that dune overtakes the maintenance area, that becomes part of the dune, and it becomes a tidal wetland area, it becomes regulated, and you can't touch it. So it's really important that they continue this project. And it saves the city a lot of money doing it in-house. Next slide. These are 2 other successful completed projects. One is the Ice Arena hazard mitigation, and the second one is the Martin Luther King Center hazard mitigation. These are both FEMA projects, 100% funded, very similar. On the top left, you have the existing condition, which is the old doors, no protection at all around the perimeter. Now what we did is we installed floodproof doors, and on the bottom left we have, it's called the FRP wrap, a fiberglass reinforced polymer wrap around the whole building with stop log systems and sump pumps. And the same thing with the Martin Luther King Center. It was $1.1 million, 100% FEMA funded. And this was the before condition on the left. You can see the AC systems are sitting on the floor. The after condition, they're raised out of the floodplain. And we also put the FRP wrap around that building as well with sump pumps and stop logs. Next slide. This was a small project, but that doesn't really get a lot of glory. But what happened is when we were starting to plan for the Long Beach Water Pollution Control Plant Consolidation Project, we had to close the dog park. So the residents were up in arms. So, the city, combined with 2 contractors, built this dog park next to the animal shelter so we can get by until the dog park opens again. And I think it gets a lot of use. It was about $100,000, and it's really nice, right next to the animal shelter. Next project, next slide. Again, another successfully completed project. We did a lot of work this year. We rehabbed the Ice Arena roof and gutter system. The contractor was Milcon Construction. The cost was $587,850. We did a complete rehab of the roof. Now has a 10-year warranty. replace the gutter system. It was done on time and in budget. We actually had leftover money, which is going to be used for the painting of the ice arena. Next slide. This is just a small project. We did a sanitary sewer replacement on Pine Street. It was about 160 linear feet of 8-inch diameter sanitary sewer that collapsed. Oh, and the power went out. Okay. And then we, after we did the replacement, we actually paved the road. It was about $100,000. On the bottom right, last week we actually, through a contract with National Water Main Cleaning, we actually lined 700 linear feet of 8-inch diameter sanitary sewer with a liner product, and it only cost $70,000. If you had to do open cut trench to replace that pipe, it would probably be $400 linear foot times 700 feet, probably $280,000 to $300,000. So there's definitely a benefit to lining if you find the candidates. And this was done on May 15th, about a week ago. Next. Other projects in progress. 200 block of East, 200 block East Market. Oh, there we go. This is the before condition. It's actually just about finished with construction. Next week I'll give you an after picture. Basically, it's going to be paved next week. There's new curbs, new sidewalks, new colonial lighting up and down the street, new drainage, new trees, landscaping. It's really beautiful. It was a $1,289,000 project funded through the capital budget. The contractor was Allen Industries. And then, of course, we have Resilient Connectivity Phase 2. This is Park Long Beach Road to Riverside. This was worked on by Roadwork Ahead. Project cost is $1,183,000, and it's 50% funded through a New York State Department of State grant. Again, if you've driven down Park Avenue, you could see it's a huge improvement. There's new curbs, there's new sidewalks, there's bricks in the utility strip. New colonial light poles are going up. We're going to be actually milling and overlaying that whole stretch in about 3 weeks. So the whole road will be repaved, restriped. Again, really another great project for the city. Next slide. This is our generator in the main floor of this building. It was the original from the 1960s. We went out to bid last year. Bel Air Electric was the low bidder at $352,553. Unfortunately, there's a year lead time. So this generator, the replacement, isn't coming in probably for another couple of months, but it's going to be removed from the lower level of City Hall, and it's going to be put on there's going to be a new one put on the firehouse. So it'll be out of the floodplain. Surprisingly, it actually somehow worked all through Sandy, and it's still functioning today. They don't make them like they used to, I guess. But we're going to replace that, yes. Next slide. Ice arena projects. We're actually rehabbing the main floor bathrooms and the upper level bathrooms. The contractor is Unib Builders at $195,000. Is being funded through a $500,000 grant from DASNY. On the top floor, we're actually opening up the bathroom and making it ADA compliant, because there's no ADA compliant bathroom in that facility right now. We're also going to be painting the building. I think that was on it was on one of the other slides. But we're going to be painting the building as well. We have it's an $80,000 project. Unib is also going to be doing that as well, starting in about a couple of weeks. So we're going to be renovating the bathrooms and painting the whole facility. Next slide. City manager just mentioned this. I have it down as in progress because there's a couple of small things that haven't been delivered yet. We have bike racks that are coming. We have planters that are coming. There's a shade shelter that's coming. So I kind of have it down as project. I have it as projects in progress, even though it's probably 95% complete. We had the grand opening on Saturday. It was really great. The kids loved it. This was $628,185 from PSL Industries. It was a 50% grant from the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation. You know, you can see we have a nice new pirate ship, which is really cool. We got a new shade shelter, benches, new climber. You know, I think it's really, again, another crown jewel in the city's pocket. Okay, the next two slides in progress. These are the big ones. We have our North Shore Critical Infrastructure Project. The anticipated completion is July of 2025. It's a $39 million project. We're probably about 40% completed right now. It's starting to really move along. There's 2,700 linear feet of cantilever steel bulkhead, new stormwater pump station, replacement of all city facilities, removal and remediation of the former gun range site, Tiger Dam at Boat Ramp, and new asphalt composite road on Water Street. Bottom left is what it used to look like before. And on the right side are the in-progress pictures. This is the footing for the new pump station. It's gigantic. This is it's called a directional drill. They're actually drilling under the tracks, a water main. So it's actually a pretty cool operation under the Long Island Railroad tracks. So it's really moving along. Anticipated completion is July 25. Next project. This is our other giant project. It's about $110 million. Contracts were awarded in October of last year. The pump station conversion contract was awarded to RJ Industries for $33.4 million, and the force main contract was $79 million awarded to Basilico. When I say force main, they're going to be building a 19,000 linear foot force main connecting our plant, our main building, to Bay Park under the channel. And ultimately, so there'll be no more waste discharge into Reynolds Channel. It's probably one of the most important regional projects we'll ever see in our lifetime. And it's probably still 2 to 3 years out. It's moving really slow, but again, they signed contracts. It's in the works. It's going to happen. Next slide. Okay, now on to the new work. This is the stuff that's in the new capital budget. We're asking for $10 million in the general fund, $800,000 in the sewer fund, $3.2 million in the water fund, for a total of $14 million. So that's $14 million in new debt. $4 million is working capital for grants. That's going to be reimbursed through grants. So therefore, the real capital budget is $14 million minus 4, or $10 million. In 2024, the city is going to pay down $12.2 million in long-term debt. Next slide. Okay, so these are the projects that are coming up. These are the things that are in the works. We're going to continue our asphalt overlay program. We're going to start doing drawings for the reconstruction of Pine Street. That's a project we're going to design in-house with my staff. The estimated cost is about $1.2 million. Heron Street north of Pine. I get a lot of complaints about this block. Heron north of Pine is arguably the worst street in Long Beach. It's the lowest spot in Long Beach. You see the pictures on the bottom right and the lower left. That's pretty much a high tide, and a sunny day. So it's pretty bad down there. And, I feel for the residents. I've talked to them repeatedly. The design's about 95% complete. We plan on going out to bid this summer. So we're asking for funds in this capital budget so we can make this project a reality starting in September. We're actually going to raise the road, too. We're going to raise the road about 8 inches to a foot to mitigate flooding on that block. But they really have suffered. So I'm hoping we could pass it and get this job done for them. Next project. Okay, this is one I just added yesterday. I want to thank Patty for this one. We were notified yesterday that we received $3,359,000 under the New York Forward program, which is a 100% state-funded grant. We received, for Park Avenue improvements between National and Edwards, $1,209,000, and for Kennedy Plaza improvements, $2,150,000. The National to Edward improvements on Park Avenue include milling and asphalt overlay of the road, new curbs and sidewalks, streetlight cable replacement, colonial poles, landscaping, bike racks, benches, planters. Basically what you're seeing on Park between Long Beach Road and Riverside is going to be done right out here. And then Kennedy Plaza is going to undergo complete rehabilitation as well. New paver installation, landscaping, benches, bike racks, refuse receptacles, and energy efficient LED upgrades. Next one. Okay, these next two are design projects. They probably won't be constructed for a couple of years because it involves a lot of, especially the first one, involves permitting and design. That photo you see on the right is the Doyle Street Canal at low tide. Again, we get a lot of complaints about this. It's really not navigable anymore. So our office put out an RFP to retain a consultant to do the design and permitting. We received 10 proposals on April 26th. This is a list of the 10 consultants. So what we do is we have a committee, we evaluate them. Ultimately, we're going to select one of those consultants to do the design and permitting. As far as number 2 on that list, City Hall facade rehabilitation, we did phase 1 a couple of years ago, and we spent about $750,000 Band-Aid just to make the exterior of the building safe. But we really need a comprehensive work on this whole facade of City Hall, including the whole window system. And again, proposals were due April 19, 2024. We received 8. We're going to be evaluating them, and then we're going to make a selection, and again, to rehab this whole exterior of this building. Next slide. This is another big one. I think the city manager mentioned this before, and Councilman Reinhardt mentioned this at the Pacific Boulevard opening. Last year we opened Magnolia Park. on Memorial Day. This year, we opened Pacific on Memorial Day. Hopefully next year, we're going to open Sherman Brown Park on Memorial Day. That's the goal. We're asking for $781,500 in the capital budget. The anticipated construction is spring '25. We're going to have a new modular tile surface on the basketball court, new fitness equipment, new shade shelters, new playground equipment, new rubberized surface, new energy efficient LED lighting, and new decorative privacy slats in the fencing. So we're going to look into really get this project moving in the next few months. Unfortunately, there's a long lead time with the equipment, so it's going to probably take some time. Next slide. As far as police and fire, the police department requested funds for a records management system and the construction of a women's locker room. And they also the fire department requested funding for stretchers, and that's in the capital budget as well. Next slide. Okay, the next 6 projects are all water related. I don't know if anybody was here last week, but I spent a lot of time talking about water projects, and we had a lot of discussion about increase to the water rates. Well, this is one of the reasons, because we have, I think, 6 big projects on the horizon. The first one is the replacement of the water tower. We actually received bids in April of '23 for $17 million. Unfortunately, we've been applying for grants over and over again. We can't seem to get grants for a water tower. It's not in the current capital budget, quite honestly, but I'm going to leave it in here until it gets funded. I'm going to have this every year, because eventually we're going to have to do this project. I know it's a lot of money, but I am going to keep mentioning it over and over again until it gets done. The next one is a new potable water well, number 16A. We received bids in May of '22. It's a great bid from AC Schultes for $2.3 million. Unfortunately, we're having problems getting the permits from the DEC. Again, I'm going to keep this on here year after year until we actually get this project built, but it's very important nonetheless. Next slide. Okay, sand filter rehabilitation. The estimated cost to rehab 2 filters is $1,250,000. We have $1 million from a grant, it's called a STAG grant, and so there's $1 million we're asking for in this capital budget, which is the working capital, so we could build this project. The sand filters were installed in the 1970s. They were rehabilitated in the late 90s. No real work has been done on them in the last 25 years, so we're asking for funding to do that. This is a big one. This is, Mike is here. This is the Walks Water Main Upgrades, Phase 1, New York Avenue to Grand and Park to Beach. We actually got bids from Thomas Novelli Contracting for $4.7 million. Right now, we need $2.1 million to supplement the existing funds that are in the capital budget so we can award this. So again, we have $2.1 million in the capital budget, proposed capital budget. Hopefully it gets approved so we could award this project in June or July so we can commence work in September '24. Next one. This is another huge project. Actually, bids are due Thursday, May 23rd, this week, to replace all 8,300 residential water meters in the city. The estimated cost was $6,667,000, and $2,667,000 is coming from an EFC grant. So again, bids are due May 23rd. That's the meter we're going to be installing. It's called an electromagnetic flow meter from Census. And as far as other water work, we have money in the capital budget to do the water system component of our Complete Streets programs. And sewer, there's not really a lot in the sewer, because hopefully we're getting out of the sewer business in a couple of years. So we just have sewer lining, emergency sewer repairs, and sewer system components to Complete Streets projects. Next slide. Okay, these next 2 slides, and I'm almost to the end. I'm sorry it's taking a little while. This is line by line, all the things that we're asking for in the capital budget. This is, and I'll just run through them real quick. For road reconstruction, we're asking for $1 million. Road overlays, $500,000. For heavy-duty trolley bus, $683,000. Semi-open trolley bus, $350,000. Transportation vehicle, $17,500. Planned study for a new central bus garage, $600,000. Fire department stretchers, $200,000. Police department storage trailer, $100,000. Police department records management system, $350,000. Next slide. The women's locker room renovation, $75,000. Recreation center improvements, $120,000. Salt storage dome, $1 million. That's actually an interesting project because we're really in violation right now because we store our salt outside and it's supposed to be covered. We cover it with tarps. It's not really effective. So we're asking for $1 million to build a salt storage dome. We're one of the few communities that don't have one. So the city buildings rehab, $850,000. resurface the turf field. This is one that Joe's been asking for probably for the last 5 years. It finally made the cut. It's actually in the proposed capital budget, so hopefully it gets passed so we can do that. We put in $500,000 for playground rehab, $400,000 for a street sweeper, $150,000 for a parking study, $800,000 for sewer upgrades, water treatment improvements, $100,000. The walks was $2.1 million that I mentioned previously. Sand filter rehab, $1 million, and sanitation vehicles, $839,540. Anyway, in summary, so this is, I think, the last slide. Department of Work, we're requesting $13,994,040 for the 2024 capital budget. It's comprised of $9,994,000 from the general fund, $800 from the sewer, and $3.2 million from the water fund. The bottom right is just a table of all the previous capital budgets. This one's $13 million, 13.9. It was 14.6 last year, 10.9 the year before. It's just a table showing the old capital budgets. Next slide. And that's pretty much it. Thank you, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Joe. We have some questions from the council.
Sure, shoot.
All right, I'll go first. Sorry, Joe, I got just a list of questions since this
Sure, no problem.
is kind of the first time we're talking about this. In line 25, there's $600,000 for a plan or for a study for the new garage, for a new central garage. What is that? Are we still?
That was requested from our transportation department to do a study to relocate or build a garage at another facility. So it's $600,000, and I think 90% of it is potentially reimbursement from FTA. So you have to put out the working capital for it, but that was a request from the.
So we are getting a grant to pay for most of that.
Well, it's from the FTA. It's not. Well, yeah, it's an FTA grant. Correct.
Okay. In line 31, we got $200,000 for 3 EMS stretchers, and you may not know the answer to this. What makes a stretcher cost almost $70,000?
Yeah, I don't know. Is Joe Miller back here anyway? No. Okay. Because I'm somewhat the conduit for some of these projects. Like I get it.
I get it. The individual departments.
I'll definitely. We asked the same question, Dan and I. Like, why is it so expensive for a stretcher? He'll explain.
These stretchers would be the power load stretchers, so they're the electronic ones. Unfortunately, the costs for those are very expensive, going anywhere from $50,000 to $60,000 for each. And then we have to have them installed. We'd be updating the 3 other primary ambulances we use, and that's where it's coming from.
When you say electronic, do they have built-in medical equipment, or it's just like electronic lift and
Yes,
stuff?
the lift. Power
okay.
load.
So it's lifting electronic.
Yep, everything's done that way.
All right.
Okay.
All right, thanks. In line 40, we're proposing $100,000 for a police storage trailer.
I have Rich for that one. Okay.
Yeah, where would this go, A? And B, how come we can't use the old police auxiliary building and save the $100,000?
Currently, we have a bunch of all-terrain vehicles and bicycles and other equipment that we store the parking garage at this time. It gets weathered and the equipment doesn't last long. So we're looking for a better solution, to keep the equipment longer.
Where would it go?
We were hoping either in the back over here in the parking lot.
Okay, so it's something that needs to be in proximity to the station then?
Yes, sir.
So the old police auxiliary building probably wouldn't be workable?
Yeah, probably not.
Okay. And just why you here, just quick, and I think I know the answer, the $350 for the police records management system, that's because the old system's not going to be maintained anymore, right? Because it's out of date?
Correct. Our current records management system
Okay.
was bought by another company, and they're no longer going to maintain this product.
All right.
In fact, there's a budget line item tonight to extend it for
Right.
the year. It's the
To
last
extend
year.
the, right, but I think
Yeah,
it's
that'll bring us to
because it's
February.
going away. It's
Right.
not going to be
Exactly.
maintained anymore. well, you know what, this is an Ena question, I can email her separately. Doesn't impact this. The salt storage dome, where's that gonna go?
That's going to be in the transfer station, in our transfer station yard.
So behind like, Center Mill? That lot back there?
Yeah, the southeast corner of Riverside and Park Place, or southeast corner of Riverside and J.J. Evans Boulevard. There's like if you go in the yard, there's concrete, like push walls there now.
Okay, so that's not the
It's gonna
lot like behind Center
No,
Mill?
no, it won't be there. But it's been a problem for many years now, and
Well, the DEC mandated we have to do it, right?
it's really Nassau County Department of Health. That's
Oh.
we actually got a violation from the Nassau County Department of Health for storing it outside. So we bought tarps. But the caveat there is, if you're covering them with tarps only, you have to make sure by the end of April that you get all of the salt out of the yard. So it presents a problem, like, because if it's not covered, so if we have a light winter, you could have 200 tons of salt that you have to somehow get rid of, which isn't ideal. So the bottom line is we really should have a salt storage dome for housing the salt. It really shouldn't be stored outside. It's hard to keep the tops on it too. It's really difficult. Like no matter what you do, they blow off. They try to weight them down. It's just not really ideal.
Okay. Well, I guess enough tequila, you could get rid of it, but,
Right.
okay, in line 87, we're proposing 500,000 for the playgrounds. We've already borrowed 312,000. It's already been borrowed. But the notes say that it's partially grant funded, and then the city has to match. But in the capital budget, it doesn't show any grant money.
Yeah, what's happening is we have money, when Pacific Boulevard Playground is complete, we're going to get back approximately $350,000 from the Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation, which is going to be used for Sherman Brown. The problem is we're not going to get that money back probably for a good 6 months to a year, even though the project was just completed, because we haven't put in for the reimbursement yet. I didn't even get the final bill yet from the contractor. So now I have about $300,000 right now in the capital budget, if you looked at it closely, but I need about $800,000 to build Sherman Brown Park. So
Right.
I'm asking for the $500,000 to supplement the $350 or so that's there, so I
Right.
could build Sherman Brown Park.
But we're
Now-
not going to probably get any, unless we apply any new grant money necessarily, which
Well,
we've already
gotten. The new round of grants for the consolidated funding application is due, I think, in July.
Okay.
And
maybe.
we're definitely going to apply for new
It's a
money.
maybe.
Because it really, I feel is warranted. It's in that economic area where we should be able to get funding for it. So we're going to try. But the bottom line is I need that money to supplement the 300 that we have.
Sure.
And then ultimately, we will get back the 300, which hopefully will go back into the capital budget. We could either use it for other parks,
Okay.
or she could use it to pay back debt.
Okay, the 400,000 for the street sweeper, is this just replacing the one, or are we adding
We
one?
needed, what happens, we have a 2015 and a 2019, I believe it is, and the older one, they're both in poor shape. So again, we had internal discussions that I think it was time that we purchased another one.
Okay, getting near the end.
So we have two.
And this one, this is an interesting philosophical question, I guess, for the council too. So we're taking 4 sanitation vehicles out of the operating budget.
Correct.
We were paying them through a lease, and now moving them into the capital budget for $839,540. So what we're doing is we're going from paying a lease to now borrowing and adding to the debt. So on the plus side, we're kind of reducing the operating budget, which helps keep the tax increase down. But the flip side is we're adding to the debt service.
Yep.
So,
I could address that, Joe. The lease has an interest rate attached to it.
Right.
Which is higher than what our bonding capacity interest rate would be. So we'd be overall saving money as a city by going through the bond. So our bonding interest rate is significantly lower than a lease rate.
no, I get that. I guess I'm just saying this is kind of a philosophical issue, though, of what should be in the operating budget versus what should be a capital item. You know, there was a history of putting ridiculous things in the capital budget in the past, you know, to kind of mask the actual operating expenses of the city. Then over a period of time, the city moved away from that. So I guess it's just finding that sweet spot of, like you said, what should go in a capital budget versus an operating budget. So I guess we're not going to solve this here. It's, like I said, it's a philosophical question I think the council and city manager need to discuss. Okay, the parking study, 150,000. We've done, how many parking studies have we done so far, and nothing has come of them? So what's going to be different this time?
I'm going to hand this one over to Patty Bourne, our Director of Economic Development, because this is her request. Okay.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Last year, it was at the end of the cycle when the city was considering putting in parking meters on Park Avenue, which didn't move forward. And we were requested to re-examine our downtown. So we applied for a very competitive grant to Empire State Development, the state, which they only award $100,000 each year, and of that $100,000 we received 70. So we got the major amount. And our argument, the reason we applied for the funds, was that we have three significant, unique downtowns, all different. The West End, Central, Park Avenue, and the East End, all having issues with parking and traffic. And we did it from the point of view of residents who want to be able to park and go to stores and other places. We did it from the perspective of our business owners and their employees who need places to park safely, and also from the perspective to minimize and eliminate vacancies. Because if a new business is coming to town, they need to know that there's places for their people to park as well as shoppers to park. So, Councilman Bendo, you make a good point about prior studies. As far as I know, none of them have been done recently. They were done quite a while ago by a good firm. I know the firm. As far as I know, they did all the studies. But it was more of coming up with solutions for street, and they're strong on looking at issues with metering. They're strong on looking at issues with solutions that may not work for Long Beach. As I understand, they had a solution in the past regarding residents having passes that was not acceptable. So we want, now the funds, it looks like 150,000, but as I said, the grant is 70,000. And our match is 20,000. So the net cost to the city for the study is $20,000. We'll have 90,000, the 70,000 from New York State, the 20,000 from the city, 90,000 to hire a new, well-regarded consultant who has experience working in the kinds of downtowns we have in Long Beach, with not only local residents, but people coming from out of town, especially in the summers as a destination. And the rest of the costs will be in kind. And in kind means that we anticipate staff time will be put into this. And it will be a collaboration among the various departments, the DPW department, the police, fire safety, our department, economic development planning, et cetera, working with our city manager and working with all of you to select the right firm and do the study. So it's costing us, the net is $20,000 for a $90,000 study. And the total cost is $150,000, including the cost, as I said, for in-kind services.
So if I could just add to that as well, we've spoken, me and Patty, about this specifically. What I don't want is that a new consultant comes in and does the same report that's been done multiple times. So one of the main things we've talked about is to make sure that they review the previous studies and they build off of those studies rather than start over and rebill us for the same things that were done before. That being said, I've also talked with some of the council members about the possibility of maybe starting a parking committee similar to our other committees that we have throughout to get some residents involved and come up with solutions that will work for the entire city. So I think that's a direction we'd like to go. We'll probably start reaching out to, try to get some volunteers for that committee and try to develop that from this point forward as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty.
And last one for you, Joe. I think it's a two-parter. So we have $800,000 for sewer upgrades, and we've already got a $575 borrowed. What's determining, how much money we're spending on the sewer system, considering the county is taking it over here in a couple of years?
Okay, so there's two answers to that question. One, we use that sewer fund money, the sewer borrowing, as the sewer component when we bid out a Complete Streets project. For example, when we bid out Heron, for example, next month, say the project comes in at 1.4 million. When I put the resolution together, I have to break it into the water fund, the sewer fund, and the general fund. So what I do is I go through the bid items, and I'll take out the sewer component, which I'm going to say, in this case, it's probably going to be $400,000 just for the sewer component to replace the sewer manholes. That includes the storm sewer system on that block. And again, even for Pine Street, the one that we're going to be designing to do next fall, again, the sewer component comes out of that budget line for that. Then we also use that money for any kind of emergency sewer repairs. So I do like to have money on hand. Like, for example, we just had the one on Pine Street between Clark and Harmon. We've been relatively lucky, but every time those hits could be anywhere from the $100,000 that we just awarded to $400,000 a clip if we have a sewer collapse. So basically, the two-part answer to that question is, one, it's for the sewer component of the Complete Streets project, and it's also for sewer collapses in the city. So I have money to do it, so I don't have to have any kind of amendment to the capital budget. If it happens, then that's really it.
Okay.
Okay.
And then in the proposed budget, we're allocating $1 million of the sewer fund towards the sewer budget, but then we're borrowing in the capital budget to fund sewer projects. Wouldn't it have made more sense to allocate the reserve fund from the sewer to the capital project?
I'm not sure I'm following you. I apologize. I'm not.
So we're taking $1.05 million in the reserve unallocated reserve fund,
Okay.
and we're putting it towards we put it towards, in the proposed budget, towards the sewer fund, the sewer budget, as part of lowering the sewer fund rates.
I think this is more of an Ena question, to be quite
Right.
honest with you.
But now we're turning around and
Right.
we're borrowing money to fund sewage projects. Wouldn't it have made more sense to take that unallocated fund balance and put it towards the projects?
But I think, Joe, what you're explaining is the capital portion of the sewer is coming from capital projects.
Right.
So you don't want to have multiple funding, well, I mean, you could, but you
Well,
don't
you
want to
could
have
do an
multiple.
inter-fund transfer.
You could do an inter-fund transfer, but we usually fund one capital project as a whole, and these are the sewer components of that project. But we could separate it out and use multiple funding sources rather than one complete funding source. But these are just it's not like we have a separate sewer project going out. This is like a main street that goes out, and the sewer component is being allocated to the sewer, the water component's being allocated to the water, and then the streets portion is being allocated to the general. So that's why that's done. But could we take some more money out of the fund balance for the sewer? We could, but I think as of the last meeting, I think we were a little uptight about taking the amount of money that we're taking out of the sewer fund balance already.
Yeah, I guess.
No, because the debt service on the sewer fund is paid out of the
No,
sewer.
I guess what's a
the
little
sewer
weird.
fund that you're referring to.
What's a little weird to me is that we're spending down the reserve fund to keep the rates down, but then, so that on the one hand, but on the other hand, we're borrowing money to pay for sewage projects, when we had obviously excess reserve fund we could have used.
But I think you use the reserve fund to pay down the debt service on the capital sewer fund, I think, right? That's my understanding.
No, we used it to cover the reduction in the sewer rates.
Yeah, this is really a question, quite honestly, for the city controller, because I wasn't part of that aspect of the budget. I wasn't really privy or part of that, so I can't really answer that question.
All right.
Because, I mean, typically borrowing is project-specific, not scope-specific. Like you borrow for a project. So if the
Well,
project
you don't
is-
have to
right.
borrow for a project. We are doing it here, but that goes back to that philosophical point of if you have the money and you can operationalize the expense, why would you add to the debt service? Which is kind of what we're doing here. We're borrowing money when we already had excess money that we're trying to burn down. So seems like we kind of solved one problem, but kind of added to another.
Joe, I guess a good way of putting this is, what do we pay? What do we pay on the bond, usually?
That, again, that depends, that's outside my area of expertise. That's really a question for the controller, what the bond rate is right now, because obviously we got an increase in the rating.
Right,
So the
and what do we
rate's going
get?
to be less, but that is a question that is really for the controller.
And-
I have no idea what the actual rate on the
Yeah.
bond is. What you're going to see, if this capital budget is approved, in the next council meeting in probably late June, you're going to see the bond authorization for all of these projects, and that is when the finances of it is going to be discussed. That's when the borrowing and what rate you're going to get is going to be discussed.
But,
This is more
you know, I
project
have the
specific.
same question as John, and that's,
Yeah.
you know, I've always wondered about that, you know, if you, you know, it's like if I have to pay a debt, and it's running me 10%, and I have money in my CD that I'm getting 5% on, it doesn't make sense not to take the money from the CD and pay the debt. And if I'm not mistaken, at the most, we're probably getting on our money is maybe 3 or 4%, and the bonds are running probably 5 or 6%. That's why I had the same question.
And I
as John.
don't have the answer to that question. I don't know what the bond, I know our bond increase, our bond rating has increased. I don't know how that impacts the actual borrowing that we, spend, or what we spend for borrowing. And that's really, again, that's definitely a question for the city controller.
Mike, you had a question?
You done, John?
Just one quick one. I'm sorry I said it was the last one. We have about $34.5 million in money that's already been borrowed, that's kind of sitting there, that we're paying interest on and principal, but a lot of it's not being used. It's just kind of sitting there. So what is done with that money? Is it
So-
invested, or should we be using it to pay down debt?
So it's interesting. This is my fourth capital budget, and what you're mentioning is one of the key things that, that the controller and I really started to look at. And what I look at every year is we go through all of the budget lines, in my case, 2015 to the present. And you're right, there was a lot of old money, and it's one of my sticking points, it's a concern to me, because if you have, like, say, $100,000 from 2016, well, you either got to spend that, you should spend, if you're paying 3-4% interest on that, that's terrible. That's just a waste of money. It's awful practice. So we've, the controller and I have really made, I feel, strides in trying to make sure, that we trying to either use all that old money for the intended purpose, whether it's a park, a vehicle, or pay down debt, or use it to pay down debt. I mean, and that's what you have to do. So it is a problem. I feel like we've made a lot of headway in addressing that problem. I stay on top of it all year round. But then again, there are still issues where we have that problem, and I'll give you a perfect example. Dan noticed this when we started. I sat down with him and I told him we borrowed $4 million for well number 16. He's like, well, why aren't you building well 16? I said, well, we have a problem. We can't get the permit. Meanwhile, I had directed the controller to borrow that money. So Dan basically said, well, how much is the estimated project? I said it was about 2.3. He said, why don't we pay back $1 million of that $4 million, which we did. So you need to use the $1 million of that $4 million to pay it back. But we're still paying interest on $3 million. waiting for a project to be approved by the DEC, to get the permit from the DEC, while I'm paying interest on $3 million. So it's a challenge. It's a very, very difficult challenge. Like, when do I borrow the money? When is the project going to start? You don't want the money to sit. It's very, very challenging. The planning component is difficult, and I'm very aware of it, and I do, in all our work. That being said, we definitely borrow money sometimes, and we're paying interest on it. I get it, and we try to avoid that as best we can.
We did spend a lot of time making sure that we understand where all the old money is and what it could be spent on, to make sure that we're cleaning up the older years first. The one other thing I would say is that we cannot borrow money and then invest it, so and make more money on it. It's called an arbitrage rebate. So if we make more money on the money that we borrowed than we need, like, so if we get, say, we're paying 3% and we make 4%, we have to pay back the borrower that 1%.
I'd even settle for breaking even. So,
Mike?
thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
Great presentation.
Thank you.
Couple quick, John and Dan hit on a couple of my questions as well. Salt storage dome, $1 million. Can you explain why that costs $1 million?
It's interesting. We actually, if you look in the capital budget closely, there's actually a grant that we received for $160,000 from the DC like 4 or 5 years ago. And unfortunately, you just can't build a salt storage zone for that. I've had contractors come down there. I've talked to different contractors. They're building one in Rockwell Center now for every bit of $1 million. Mm-hmm. The costs are just extremely high. I have no interest in spending that much money, right. But we have a design about 90% complete right now, and we're going to go out to bid for it. But I think it's going to be every bit of that. I'm hoping it's lower, okay. But and if it's lower, that's great. But that's what I'm being told by LK McLean is the consultant we're using. They've built quite a few. They've designed quite a few of these, and that's the estimates that they're giving to me.
Okay.
Okay.
Next question. So we're getting new trolleys through grant money.
Correct. That's FTA money.
FTA money.
So what happens is we put out the work in capital, and I think we get 90% back.
Right. Are we going to use these as additional, or are we going to sell our old ones? What's the plan?
That's a good question. I don't have an answer to that. Do we have anybody from transportation here?
Yeah,
tonight?
I don't see
Tonight?
Mike here. I believe that they age out, but I think we would use them as long as we can, but I believe they age out. And typically we buy one every so many years and then they age out the other ones.
Yeah, one of them is quite old.
Yeah, I believe the older.
Do they age out
glass
by
window ones.
mileage or by just a set period from the grant we
It's
purchased?
really when your maintenance costs go up, but usually it's by mileage and years. These ones are fairly old. I could get you the exact condition that they're in, but I would say they typically age out. I used to work for Federal Transit Administration, and it is typical that they replace them every so many years. So we'd probably sell them, or I know we only buy them when we can jump onto somebody else's contract, so it's pre-bid out, and we don't have that purchasing time frame. So we do wait until the.
But we
last minute
would
to
sell
get those.
them.
We would sell them.
I think our open air trolley is very nice. I don't know the mileage
Yeah.
on it, or condition of it, but I would imagine it would sell.
I think the older one is the one with the glass windows.
Yeah, honestly, I'm really not that familiar with those vehicles. I don't know how old they are. I don't want to speak out of turn.
I would
just
just
don't
say,
know.
I would just say, if we can sell them, I think it'd be something that we should really.
I agree
look
with you.
into.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
I will definitely
Yeah.
get you those details.
Okay.
I'm glad Dan mentioned, we were talking about parking, the parking study for a moment. I'm glad Dan mentioned the parking committee because I think it's important. Nobody knows the parking like the residents in Long Beach and how each neighborhood is so specific to the challenges of parking. It's way different in the West End than it is in the canals and everywhere else. So I just, by establishing that committee, I think it's a great opportunity when we do get the study in to have a committee and at least have a representative from each neighborhood to help go through that even before it comes to the council because their input, I'm getting a lot of great ideas already, as I'm sure everybody else is. So I just wanted to call that out. Also, I really enjoy in your presentation about celebrating the wins. by the CSEA team and
Yes,
by the
yeah.
city workers. I know we're trying to be more diligent and posting that. I think we should even be more diligent about posting that. And what I do like is when you add in that little caveat, the CSEA or our city workers did a project for $200,000, but with a private construction is $500,000, and I would just recommend that we include that in our posts to let everybody know that, because that's great information.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they do a phenomenal job, and I can't say enough about them. I mean,
Right.
it's just incredible the work they do.
Right. And just my last comment was, thank you again thank you to the workers, thank you, Joe, for the playground at Pacific. We were there Saturday morning. I look forward to Sherman Brown getting redone too, because as you could see, that park, when we left, was packed.
Yep.
And that's not just because it was the opening, that's just the way these parks get used. It's quality of life. Long Beach is full of families, and we really need to make sure our playgrounds are in top shape. So thank
I
you.
100% agree. It was a great day. It was very
Joe, I
nice.
just got one quick thing.
Sure.
What the Salt Dome?
I have some information on the councilman. A question about the trolleys. I got it from Mike Robinson.
Okay.
He said that the FTA allows you to replace trolleys after 10 years, and the ones being replaced are over 10 years old, and they will be sold for the maximum amount we can get.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patty.
Is the trolley they're using right now in the West End, is that the trolley you were just speaking about? The,
I think it's only two, right?
Yeah, I think there's
there's three.
Yeah.
the red.
It has to
There's two regular trolleys and one open-air trolley.
Right. You're talking about the open air, right?
No, talking about the closed one.
Oh, okay.
That's
Yeah,
what's
the two closed
currently
ones, I believe, are
doing the
over 10
West
years
End.
old.
But you wouldn't know the answer, so we'll find out some other day.
So, Joe, if I could, with the Salt Dome, I know other municipalities have, some municipalities have the dome where they, trucks can pull in. I get it, it makes it easy, and there's a barrier wall and whatnot. But I noticed upstate New York, which gets significantly more snow than us, particularly in Greene County, they have prefab metal enclosures and then, barrier walls that are built that, I imagine from my research on it, 100 by 100, and I don't know how big this has to be, footprint of prefabs, they're under $100,000. And then back to, the CSEA workers, I'm sure, they can properly build, barrier walls and whatnot for the dozers to pull in or payload loaders to pull in to load the trucks. Has it been looked at into those different scenarios, what they're doing in northern New York?
I haven't looked at that specifically. But the good thing about, again, even though you're voting on the capital plan tonight,
Yeah,
this
not
does not
so.
mean that you're voting on the money.
Right.
And even if you vote next month to authorize, on the authorization, it's still not borrowing the money.
Right.
So we do, we go through a rigid process. Like, we don't just, even though I put that million in there.
Yeah.
Like, I won't tell Enid, the controller, to just borrow it if the council approves it. Well, she won't do it. She, we all talk. Like, I mean, I wouldn't ask you to borrow it unless we really have
The project in
the
place.
project
Yeah.
in place and ready to go. So, so the bottom line is, if that was a valid option, and if you gave me that information, I'd love to look at it. And if I can get it done for $200,000, that's fantastic.
Right.
I mean, and then we won't bond. So this would just be, in other words, we're voting to approve the capital plan, and then next month there'll be a bond authorization, and then she does the borrowing in September. Enid does, the controller does the borrowing in September.
Got
So it's
it.
like a three-step process, really. And again, when we go for the borrowing, there's many projects that we, even from 2-3 years ago, that it's been authorized but never borrowed, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
And a good example is for the water tower. We actually authorized $8 million for the water tower. It's not borrowed, so it's just, we have the ability to borrow it, but it's just authorized.
Right.
And there's countless situations like that where it's just authorized,
Got it.
okay, but not borrowed.
I'm good. I think John and Mike hit on most of the concerns I had as well.
I have a question, probably for Joe Brand, regarding the turf resurfacing. Just wondering, when was the last one? And how do you decide, how does that decision get made on
Life
resurfacing?
expectancy. That turf field was done, I believe, 2005, somewhere around there. And it's just, year after year now, we're putting, a couple thousand here, 5,000 there into repair work. The one nice thing about the work that's going to get done here is all we have to replace is the carpet, all the drainage, everything else. We can reuse a lot of the rubber that we currently have on the field now, so there'll be substantial savings with the work that gets done. Plus, it's a much more competitive market now than it was, in 2005. There's a lot more companies that do particularly the carpet work. So I think we're going to get a lot of very competitive bids on it, and it's time. We had Lantec, I believe it was. They came in 2019 or 20 and looked at it and determined it was time, and had even give us prices then for like a major rehaul or to have it replaced. So when Joe said before that I've been pushing for this for 5 years, he's not lying. It's time.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah. Joe?
Yes, sir.
A couple, I'll try to be quick. One of the things that I guess kind of bothers me is that we get reimbursed for things, but we have to borrow the money until we get reimbursed. And I know I've asked this question before, but nobody seems to know. How much is this costing us generally in a year to borrow and then pay the interest until we get the reimbursement? Because we don't get the reimbursement for the interest.
I don't know what that number is because we, unfortunately, almost every grant, other than the GOSA projects that we were doing about a year or two ago, the Governor's Office of Storm Recovery, all require the working capital up front. And unfortunately, it takes time to get that money back. I mean, if we start a project, we may not get the final billing for a year and a half, 18 months after it starts, and then we could take another 6 months to get the money back. So I guess the answer to your question is it depends. Depends on, when we get the reimbursement back, how long the money's borrowed for. It's a tough question. And I think it varies is really the answer. But I'm sure the controller can give you a more definitive, actual number, because, for each borrowing, so to speak. But it's definitely going to vary depending on the project.
Obviously, it depends on length of time, interest rate, et cetera, So
And it also depends on the bond. Like she does short-term bonds versus long-term bonds. It's a little complicated, quite honestly. But
but what I'm looking for is past data from the past. What did it cost in 2022? What did it cost in 2023? That type of thing. That way, if you don't have that data, it's really tough to make a projection. Right. On anything. And I know everything changes, interest rates changes, the weather changes, everything changes. But if you go by history, you learn. The other question I was going to ask is, we have bans out right now that have to be refinanced in September. Does anybody know? I mean, we're not sure if we're going to be long-term debt or short-term debt. I thought bans had to be all short-term debt.
Yeah, again, this is really a question for the controller. I had a discussion. Okay. I know she's got bronchitis, and I had a discussion with her before this, and she felt really terrible that she couldn't be here. And we basically decided that the answer to those types of questions I was going to have to defer to her, and we can answer them at a later date. I don't even want to try to speculate on some of those answers because it's really not my area. I'm here more to discuss the projects themselves, as opposed to how you finance the projects.
Yeah, Roy, we can get you that information. I'll speak with Ina. She was just quite sick. I think she has really bad bronchitis.
I bring it up every year, though. And
Okay.
The high-pressure sand filter rehabilitation, it's, in here you have it twice, one in projects funded completely by the city and water fund, and projects funded by grants and city in general. Then you have $1 million on bonded funds or funds from others as legislative approval.
Which is really, it shouldn't really say that. It should say it's called a STAG grant, S-T-A-G grant. What happened is last year when we did the capital budget, I only asked for $250,000. I didn't realize that for that program you had to have the working capital, so we only borrowed the $250,000. So we couldn't really build the project because we didn't have the money to put out in advance. So this year, I'm actually asking, even though we're going to get the million back, I'm asking for the 1 million in addition to the 250 that we already borrowed, so we can actually build the project. But we will get $1 million back on that grant program.
And last question, I promise.
Sure.
The sewer has to be done by by December of 2025?
Well, we're under a consent order.
Yes.
That it has to be done, but I see an extension in our future. We're going to have to ask for an extension because, in my opinion, based on the progress we've made to date, you know, they're 25% through the work duration and 0% complete with the construction. So I see an extension request in our future. I mean, I don't think it's reality to finish it in December 25. I really don't. We're having a lot of issues right now. I don't want to get too much into it, but a lot of it has to do with PSC&G and relocation of poles on the property to accommodate construction of what's called an interim bypass pump station. A lot of things going on. So I really don't see that happening. I see it happening in 2020, at the end of 26 or something to that effect. But we'll have to apply for an extension as we get closer.
And we can't turn over to Nassau until we have that pump station.
Until you flip the switch, we cannot do that.
And
The good news is, like right now, there's about $16 million in debt service on the facility and the sewer. You know, the way the agreement is written, that we continue to collect all of the revenues for the sewer system until all the debt is paid. So that's the $16 million that we owe from previous repairs on the facility. So we do continue to collect the debt, and then when all the debt is paid, the county gets the revenue from the sewer.
Well,
At
then
that
the
point.
county makes its own sewer rate.
They can do that. To my
would.
knowledge, there's no provision in the contract that dictates what the rate can be. They could raise it, sure.
They will make their own rate. And so we keep our rate. We determine the rate until that bond is paid off.
Correct. So we you know, it's going to be 3 or 4 years for sure. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of work to do. The good news is that the two contracts, the big contracts, were signed on October 20th, 2023 last year. RJ Industries and Basilico signed $37 million and $77 million contracts respectively. So we're neck deep in this. You know, it's happening. I mean, the project is going forward. It's happening, and it's going to transform the waterfront over there. You know.
Oh, really? Everyone's really looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to open up.
Fish in Reynolds Channel again.
Yeah, no, it's really a great quality of life project for the residents. It's going to bring people back to the estuary. It's going to prevent pollution of the estuary. I mean, it's just a great project.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out the sewer projects, the upgrades that we have to do at what point and they can't, once we throw the switch, even though we still owe money and stuff, they start repairing the sewers.
Say that one more time. Can you repeat that? I apologize.
Once we throw the switch.
Yes.
And it starts pumping over there, Nassau is in charge of repairing all of our sewer.
Yep, that's
pipes.
correct. They are going to take over the sanitary sewer system. It'll be a glorious day because the sewer system is, you know,
Don't
it's
say
aging.
Nassau might be listening.
Okay, I think they know already.
We look forward to that partnership.
Yes, it's a perfect partnership. I love it.
I think if everyone's done, I think there's just one thing that Joe said that I think is important to just clarify to everybody again. This capital plan, we're approving basically the projects on it. The bonding authorization will be a separate approval from the city council at a later time. So I don't think the bonding issue is really necessarily a play here, but we should remember that authorization is a separate item.
And I do just want to mention one thing because I had a long discussion with Ina. You know, again, she apologized for not being here. She's under the weather. She was anticipating that I'd have the question like, is it going to have any impact on the current budget? And the answer is no. And the answer is no because they're going to do this borrowing in September, and she won't have to pay debt on it till I think September of 26. So it should have no impact on. She wanted me to make that clear that it has no impact any of this on this budget.
Well, I'm kind of curious about what Dan just said. We're voting on projects now, but are we obligated to pass a bond?
No.
That's what I thought. Okay. Thank you.
What he said. Thank you, Joe. Do we have questions from the public? Mike?
It's up here, Mike Delory, Long Beach. Is it okay up here? Or you want me to down there?
No, you could.
I'm good. What I heard tonight was, as far as parking, I don't think you need another study. I mean, I didn't even bring it here for that reason, but you have 2019 studies, you have 2016, you got 2008. All you really need is the willingness to either move forward or not. It's as simple as that. I'm here tonight for the capital budget. No real questions. I'm here to support it in its entirety. I'm also speaking on behalf of the West Home and Walks Civic Association. With me, I believe Tom Nag is here, Lynn, and Tricia. And if anybody else is here from the Walks or the West Home, you can please raise your hand. Tricia had a question about, she installed a water main line at the rear of her house. Is that correct, Tricia?
From the rear of our house to Olive Street. When we rebuilt our house after Sandy in 2015, the city put in a new water main, and I'm now questioning
Okay.
why I'm going to have to move my water
I don't,
main to the front.
I think Joe and
I don't think you're going to have to.
Right.
Are you on the walk? Are you facing the street? Are you facing?
She's in the walk, like 7 September.
Because remember, we're going to be putting new water mains on Olive and Walnut, new 8-inch diameter water mains from New York to Grand. So I would think you'd be able to tie into that main, tie your new service that you ran from the back of your house.
Well, it runs all the way from in the egress. I'm the first house in on September.
Okay.
In September. So it's just one house that it has to go past to get out to Olive. The city put in a
And
new
moved to-
main from our.
Like a service, you mean, like
Service.
a
New
copper
service.
service, I guess? Okay.
From the street to the house.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah.
It was an old cast iron, and they replaced it with whatever they used. But that was done in 2015, I believe.
I'll have to, there's going to be a lot of site-specific issues, there's a lot of issues. And we're going to be down there, with my office, there's going to be a consulting firm involved, there's going to be a contractor involved, and, I anticipate spending a lot of time down there dealing with the residents, dealing with Mike, because there's really, it's one of the most challenging projects that, we've ever done. So I'd probably like to meet you down there if possible, just so you could show me, because I'm a visual person, I really like to see it, and I'll meet you with the head of our water department, so you could go over it.
Familiar with other mains that were taken care of on that walk after Sandy and everybody's recovery, because when they built new homes, they had to replace them because they were under people's houses rather than in the.
Really? Okay. Because the goal is to abandon the 4-inch diameter water mains that are running between the houses. That's the goal, and get any of those houses that are on the 4-inch diameter main off of the 4-inch diameter main and onto a new 6-inch diameter main. What's that? You're on a 6-inch diameter water main. Well, that's good. I mean, that's what you want. 4-inch isn't code anymore. It's that 4-inch main is probably really like a 2-inch main when you open it up. So that's the overall goal. And if it costs more money to connect you to our new system, we're going to do it.
Right.
And that's what the money's for. So
Can I interject one second?
Oh, sure.
Mike, I know you've had a couple of meetings.
Well, we had one big meeting in December, and I don't want to hold up everybody's time.
Right, but maybe we
So-
could do that again, because, I mean, there are a lot of questions. you know.
We had a packed house
Right.
at the VFW on December 6th. And I'm going to give credit where credit is due. Joe and the entire team was phenomenal, prepped, informative. The residents are asking great questions, some
Right.
of which, but Lynn, Tricia, I don't think was there at that meeting, and I can't answer all the
Right,
questions.
no,
so,
I understand.
but let me move through the West Home and Walk Civic Association proudly supports the capital budget. Let me just say that. The biggest support is I got 3 minutes, is the program that you just heard. If you allow me just 10 seconds. I'm going to give you suggestions as far as, you can give these to everybody, Dave, if you want, so I can read it. As part of the curb and sidewalk replacement, areas on West Beach Street, the north side between Maywalk and the bus stop, there's a curb and sidewalk that's busted. West Beach Street, we recommend Lindell Boulevard to New York Avenue. The yellow center line needs striping. Congratulations on the bus stop shelter upgrades. They look great. An area in front of the bus stop is Grand Boulevard bus stop shelter, smoothing of the road surface, maybe painting of the word stop on Beach Street. And lastly, but I could say this for good and welfare, I'd like to talk to you about scaffolding. Thank you, and thank you for the extra time.
Thank you, Mike. Question from the public? Yes.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Tom Keneg. I live on the D December Walk. 7 years ago, it was about this time of year, early summer, 2017, my sidewalk in front of my block of December Walk was in terrible condition. It still is. Potholes everywhere, the storm drain is useless, everything floods in the area. So I was able to get all the neighbors together, let's all chip in, let's just have the whole sidewalk redone because it's our responsibility. If everyone does it at once, it'll be all done right, it'll all be pitched out to the main streets, to Walnut and West Park Avenue. And we did, we agreed, we got a contractor, we were just about to go forward with it, when I was informed that the city, this is the time when this whole project evidently was starting to go into the works of rebuilding the walks. So we stopped. We said, oh, we're not going to spend money and have it all done. You know, they're talking about possible pavers and stuff like that. So of course, you know, we're not going to throw our money away and have it all ripped up and done over again. Right. You know, since then, I've seen a lot of things going on. I see people like John Mirando. Actually, John Mirando and myself and Mike Delory, we did a walkthrough through all the walks. We showed John. John wasn't that familiar with the walks, and we walked through every block of the walks, and we were looking at everything, explaining different things that we could say. And of course, COVID came along, that delayed it. You know, there's all kinds of delays, and here we are 7 years later, still waiting. Most of the houses in the Walks neighborhood were built in the 1920s. Mine was 1928, pretty much all of them about the same age, except for the newer ones that are going in. I think a lot of people don't realize how many homes there are on the Walks. If you include, which are part of it, the 600 and 700 block of Walnut, Olive, and Beach, Lindell, New York, and Grand, there are 300 homes. It's a lot of houses, a lot of people that have water mains running alongside of sewer lines, have street lighting that's always going out because it's all just wire under the ground. It's done poorly, and sometimes if one wire breaks, you have a whole east-west run of street lights throughout Walks all going out. But basically, I'm just here to tell you I'm supporting it, and I'm hoping that we can finally get it going. I know they're working on it. Like Mike said, Joe and his crew gave a great presentation at the Civic Association meeting we had back 6 months or so ago. And you know, please, you know, do what you can do. Get this going. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Liz. Liz Treston.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
I hope you pass the capital fund budget, especially the hazard mitigation projects. These are vital to the health and safety of every single resident and visitor to our city. I was very disheartened that at last council meeting, an agenda item was tabled that impacts the future of the entire city. The bulkheads on Clark Street have not been updated on city-owned property since 1968. Joe, please correct me if I'm wrong. That's correct. Failing to address this is a failure to the entire city. Before negating the safety of our residents, please learn everything that is involved. The money has already been bonded for this project. When the DEC comes, and they will, at our bulkhead at 1968, we are going to have more problems, and it will be much more worse if you do not approve. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions? Comments? Yes? Hi.
Sarah Modnesi, Long Beach, New York.
Just speak a little
it's more of
closer.
clar-
Speak a little closer to the mic. Thank
Closer?
you.
There you go.
Sarah Modnesi, Long Beach, New York. It's more of a clarification. So the comprehensive
You gotta
plan to
speak
move,
entirely like this close to the mic so
Closer?
everybody can hear. Yeah, there you go.
how about now? So the comprehensive plan to move City Hall to Stop and Shop has been shelved or put away. We're going to just fix and stay?
I can't hear you. Just take your hand away from the mic and then just
can you
speak
hear me?
into it. You don't have to touch it. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to know if the comprehensive plan to move City Hall to Stop and Shop, which I attended many meetings for a few years ago, has been shelved or just put away because we're going to fix up City Hall now? We're staying?
So I think regardless
Mr. Bendel
of,
might remember.
regardless of what we do long-term with City Hall, we need to at least keep the building operational for the time being. So I'm not sure if you're aware, the windows leak pretty substantially. And even if we were to start building today, we'd be in this building for several years before anything substantial would be built, which would be move-in ready. So we need to at least keep this building operational until then. So we have to spend some capital dollars to get projects done until then.
Okay.
So what we do in the long term is still questionable, but at the very least, we need to do something now.
All right, thank you, and thank you for answering
Thank you.
the questions.
Yes.
I've called 911 every single night for the past 5 nights. There's a recording that comes from Stop and Shop every night, and it echoes in my house every night. And I please ask you to stop it because it's hurting
Okay.
me.
We'll look into it.
So please stop it. Stop the recording. Like it's every night.
Can you
Please
talk,
stop
can you
it.
talk to the gentleman right over here? Yeah, they'll explain it to him.
Any other questions or comments?
Hello, how are you guys?
Fine, thanks. You got to bring the mic up a little bit closer to your mouth. There you go.
Lynn Kreis, 711 August Walk. And I just wanted to comment about like the,
You want to wait? You're welcome to wait.
I,
Yeah. You're just going to close the door. Yeah, it's going to close the door.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
You good?
so I just had one question about the redoing of Kennedy Plaza. So I know that's in the capital budget, but, you know, what is the purpose of that in general? Like, why does Kennedy Plaza need to be redone?
Joe, do you want, or Patty want to answer that from there's a grant application that was put in a good bit ago, but I'll let Patty and Joe talk to this.
Hi, that's a great question. When we originally applied for this grant for what's called New York Forward 2-3 years ago, they required us to have public meetings. So we had public meetings here. We went to Kennedy Plaza to the farmers market and talked to people in the summer. And people came to us and said that Kennedy Plaza, it's historic, it's very important, it serves a lot of important uses in the city, doesn't work for certain groups. For example, I'll be as quick as possible. The farmers market or Arts in the Plaza don't have enough electrical outlets. They want to have performances, it doesn't work. So the idea was to bring it up to date, to look at other communities like us who have improved theirs, to make it more useful for the public, more useful for groups, to use it more 24/7 around the year. And people have, I've read on Facebook, they were concerned about the bricks that are there, the very important bricks that people have bought. They will all be preserved. And the idea, and the fountain needs to be updated because it's very expensive to maintain right now the way it is. It's old. Better signage, better safety issues around it because we have a lot of kids who get off the bus from high school, middle school, right on National, so to make that safer with crosswalks, and to bring Kennedy Plaza to connect better with the rest of Park Avenue for events, to make it more of a destination. And if I could just say one more thing, that the plan, so the first phase was to do the application, and we got the money. Second phase was we spent last year, some people came to meetings in this room, we had several meetings with the consultants from the state. And a state project, state directed, state consultant, state advisory board that was selected from local residents. So the Kennedy Plaza ideas that Joe talked about just recently was based upon input from this advisory committee of local residents and business owners and from meetings that the state had. The city had some input, but really it came from the community because it's state funds. I will say, which we didn't say before, that New York Forward, when we got the funds last year, was the first year of the program. So everything was new, the state is new, working on the program. So Joe and I were just talking, we anticipate there will be some tweaking to what will be done in the area to hopefully extend the funds, to maximize the funds as much as possible for the surrounding area as well.
Okay. And also, that is a grant, though?
Yes, 100% funded by the state.
Okay.
No city money in it whatsoever, but we have to lay out the money.
Yeah, I got that. And then you guys were talking also within the capital budget, something about like a garage for, I guess it was by, not the train station, but I think that was in the capital budget as well?
To do a study for the parking, to relocate the central garage, is that what you're referring to?
Well, I believe so, I'm not really sure, so.
Yeah, they put in 600,000, we were requesting $600,000 to do a study to build a new central garage at a different location other than where it is right now on Long Beach Boulevard, when you come over the bridge. There's been a lot of discussion in the past about basically building a new garage at a different location and opening up. That's the first thing you see when you come into Long Beach. It's not the ideal spot for a garage, quite honestly. The ingress egress is very difficult for the buses coming in. It's quite dangerous. And that study is going to be 90% funded by the FTA. So if it's 600,000, I think 540,000 is the FTA, and 60,000, if I'm doing my math right, is the city's responsibility.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, thank you guys.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Since I'm up here, I want to mention something about the grants process that we're doing now, because we've talked about grants. I have to say, I think that Joe is very conservative about grants because he's talking about actual grants that we've been awarded. But under Dan, under our city manager's direction, we've been doing a much more, not only extensive grant search and application process, but being more strategic and looking at what we need. So I'm hoping that next year, when Joe does his report, we'll have more grants to show that will be complementing it, because we always go by the capital budget and the capital plan that Joe puts together when we apply for grants.
Thank you, and that, I hope you're right. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, I think that closes that.
Our second public hearing is for the purpose of giving citizens an adequate opportunity to publicly present their views on the general summary of the proposed budget for the year July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. Let me switch slides here.
Let me know when you're ready.
Yep, give me a second.
All right, so while we're waiting for
There we go.
Dave to pull it up, okay. This presentation is, and public hearing is to discuss the changes to the city manager budget proposed by myself. This errata presentation would typically be your presentation, but I took the opportunity to prepare it based on the questions and comments I received from each of you individually. Next page. So for those in the public who may not be aware, the errata is basically a list of changes made after the city's manager's budget is published. It is how the city council changes the proposed budget to come to a new amended budget, which I hope will result in the approved budget this evening. If it is voted on and passed this evening, it will become the adopted budget. Next page. The budget as originally proposed by me was a balanced budget with a revenue from real property taxes of just over $60 million. This was a resultant tax increase on homestead residents of 1.04% or $53 per household. Received by the council members, there were additions and reductions, but in order to get to a 0% tax increase for homestead residents, we need to reduce the tax levy by a net of $621,481. Next slide. We were fortunate in several instances after the proposed budget was released. The state budget was released shortly after I proposed the budget, with a resultant increase in per capita aid of $366,097. This was more than half of the shortfall that we needed to make up the difference. We also realized that we had not increased the revenue expectations for sanitation based on the new development at the Superblock, which was an increase in revenue of over $100,000. Finally, we received notice after the budget submittal of a $50,000 grant award to the police department. These revenue items, totaling $532,257, gets us 85% of the way to a 0% tax increase. Now, that being said, there were also some additions that were added to the budget based on comments, but I'll get into that in a couple of minutes. This chart that is up summarizes the revenue changes made to get to the 0%, the items of which I just described. The balance of approximately $90,000 would have to be made up from expenditures. So next, all right. In addition to the $90,000 balance that I just discussed, that there were some additions that were made based on comments from the city council members. There were several adjustments that need to be made to the upside on comments from the council, and the public safety grant award of $50,000 resulted in increased spending of $50,000. There was also a heavy equipment mechanic that was requested and not funded, resulting in over a $100,000 increase to the budget because of salary and benefits. We expect this position, however, will reduce our expenses for maintenance of garbage trucks, fire department trucks, and beach maintenance equipment. So we added that into the budget as well. We continued to be conservative, however, in our expectations, so we did not reduce expenses for those items yet until we can prove that they'll be able to be accomplished. There were also some minor increases in snow removal based on comment from John Bendo, uniform allowances, materials and information technology expenses beyond what they were in the proposed budget, and based on the comments from the city council in general. Unfortunately, these additional increases need to be made up as well, and the total for everything that need to be cut was $366,000. With the help of our partners in CSEA leadership, we were able to agree on reductions in the overtime and temporary salary lines to make up for these further increases. Next slide. So this is the summary. It's not really legible to everybody in the crowd, but I'll go through some of the main highlights of it. So this shows the items that were changed in the errata sheet based on city council suggestions. The important thing of this chart is to see that despite the further increases, the overall resultant reductions are just under the 90,000, which was the shortage that we had, which gets us to the point where we could deliver a 0% tax increase to our residents, which was the main objective and main comment I received from the City Council. I believe your input from each of you on the City Council, the 5 of you, and the proposed errata changes by each of you, as I summarized here, are achievable and meet the goal of delivering the goal you set forth when the city manager's budget was proposed. It also further achieves this goal without reductions to services to the residents and with no reductions in staff to CSEA or the fire or police department. If you agree with the errata as presented, which I believe incorporates all of the changes presented by each of you through your comments and questions, I suggest this errata be proposed and incorporated into the adopted 2024-25 budget. I don't know if, I believe there's a representative here from CSEA that also wanted to say a few words. Sean, if you're willing to, now would be the time, and if not, this would end my presentation on this.
How you doing? John Mooney couldn't make it today. On behalf of President John Mooney, his executive board, and all Long Beach CSEA employees, I would like to thank City Manager Dan Creighton, Comptroller Ina Resnick, DPW Commissioner Joe Fabrizio, and the members of the City Council for their hard work and due diligence on this budget. The city, working together with the CSEA, were able to produce a budget that had no layoffs and no cuts in service. We look at it as a win-win for the city, its employees, and most importantly, its residents. We are proud to give our residents some relief in these hard economic times. As a team and as a close community, there is nothing we can't accomplish together. Again, thank you, and please vote yes.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Sean.
That's good news, Dan. Thank you, Sean. I'd say that one of the highest priorities of this council was to somehow present a budget that was balanced on a 0% tax increase. And I think I'm very happy that based on the input from all the council members and the work that Dan and Ina put together, I think we've achieved that. I know that you worked tirelessly on this, and Ina as well, to get to the budget we are here today. Ina has been the controller for quite some time, many years now, and her knowledge and acumen are important, an important reason why the city's financial picture has been improving. The 24-25 budget is a testament to your work and her work. It's important to acknowledge, as Sean just mentioned, the cooperation and the help from the CSEA, from John Mooney and his group to make this happen. We had no layoffs and there will be no cuts in service. This is a victory for the residents and the taxpayers of this city. I'd like to make a motion to adopt the errata sheet into the proposed budget and make the following changes to the item. In Section 1, change the expenditure figure of $104,775,085 to $104,685,861. In Section 3, change the amount of real estate taxes required from $60,115,844 to $59,494,403. And the homestead tax rate from $24.5357 per $100 assessed valuation to $24.2821 per $100 assessed valuation. And the non-homestead tax rate from $43.8389 per $100 assessed valuation to $43.3857 per $100 assessed valuation.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Before we move on, I'm not seeing that in the errata. Is this something, are these in the budget itself?
Yes.
Oh, okay, these
Yeah.
are from the, but not from the errata.
Right.
Okay.
You don't have a copy of
Counsel-
that, do you, for us, the rest of us? A copy of what you just read?
I can give you a copy of it.
Well, so we can go over the numbers.
Okay.
I thought you were writing them down.
Voting on the amendment. Councilmember Bendo.
Well, since hang on, give me a second. Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
I'm going to abstain. I'd like to read it.
Okay. Councilmember Reinhardt.
Yes.
Vice President Fiamora.
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes?
Okay, continue.
So we have a question from the council.
I guess I have a question for the clerk, because there is another number we need to amend in the errata sheet. It doesn't change the result, but for street maintenance, for the overtime salaries, it currently has the proposed as 410 and the adopted as 390. That really, I believe, should be proposed at 220, and you said adopted at 200, right?
It should be 220 and 200. I actually, believe it or not, changed it on the presentation before we did it, but I did not change these sheets. But yes, it should be 220 and 200.
Okay.
The resultant change stays the same.
Does that require a motion to amend the errata?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So let's, if we have any other changes, we'll do it through one, I would recommend doing it one motion at the end of the hearing.
Okay.
Right.
So that's, let me just, if I, just for record keeping here, so we're talking about changing.
I could give you the line item. It's under street maintenance A8170 51103 overtime salaries. It is proposed budget is 220,000. It should be. It was incorrect. It says 410. And adopted budget should say 200,000. The net change stays the same at 20,000. And the explanation to reflect updated projections should stay the same.
All right, so the 410 remains, but the adopted should be changing to
Yeah, the proposed should move to 220, and the adopted should move to 200. The net change should be the same.
Okay. All right. Noted. I'll ask for a motion at the end if we have any other.
Okay.
Just for, make it nice and neat.
All right, so question on this motion. Anybody else?
Nope.
Okay, question from the public. Ronnie?
Good evening, Council. Everybody up there. I couldn't see, the board, but you said basically the employees stayed the same. Now, I want to go back to the prior meeting. There was 4 firemen in the budget. Were they hired, or it stays the same?
There were several positions hired.
So the 4 that were in the budget, the prior budget, you hired these people?
I'm not sure which 4 you're talking about, but yeah, there were 5 people hired under this budget.
Right, but they were in the budget prior to that, too, in the 23-24.
The number of people does not change in the errata. It's still the same amount of people that were in the prior one.
All right, but I'm just saying they were in the budget, so they were hired. I mean, these 4 firemen or whatever. New hires.
The firemen, yes. The firemen were hired, yes.
So how many firemen are there now, plus with them now, total?
I believe it's 21.
We're up to.
24?
I think we still have more to be hired. I still think.
Yeah, well, Mr. Pinto wants 32, so he might as well just hit the number. I mean, this is, it's. The bottom line is this. The more you hire, the more it's going to cost. Yes, you will wipe out the $1.5 million in overtime, but that will, in the long term, within 3 or 4 years, each fireman will cost, I'm just saying, $100,000 plus the benefits, that's 30, and the perks, it's $170,000 a man. So when you add that up, it's going to be way more than we have now. So, but listen, it's the will of the council to do what you want, but it was the will of the people who put you there, okay? And we basically disagreed because the firefighters are only doing 20% of their job. So you're adding more men with less service. So if the police department, say the crime went down 80%, I'm not saying it could, but if it did, would you continue to hire the same amount of police officers? No, you wouldn't. In any department. I'm just saying, this is just common sense.
To try to compare those two,
I know, it's
you can't
stupid.
really do that because there are basic models about policing based on population.
Yeah.
Or what you need. A fire department is a different story.
Yeah, it is a different story because firefighters are supposed to fight fires and they're EMTs. But I'm just saying,
Right. I don't mean the obvious. I mean in terms of how do we quantify?
But listen, you're building up the fire department. They'll get back to where they were. The overtime will probably be up to 400,000, say, in the long run. So it's basically, I hope we have a lot of money in the long run.
If I could, the only problem, and I hear you loud and clear, the problem is that we are sort of burdened with an agreement that was signed already to have minimum manning of 4 guys on a truck, and we need at least 1 guy in the ambulance based on their contract.
I got it.
In order to properly man 6 people per crew, I need 24 firefighters total, which we still don't have. Otherwise, we have to cover it with overtime. We're not at the point where we could cover 5 guys per shift without putting on 2 shifts of overtime. So the unfortunate thing is we're kind of stuck in this position where, we either pay the overtime or we pay staff.
Well, the thing
Anybody
is, you're really never stuck in a position, the bottom line is the affordability, and, that's what layoffs are for. So you can take your contracts and, they're worthless. They're worthless. So I don't even want to hear about contract. It's what's best for the city in the long run. And you're just going down the wrong road. I mean, in my opinion. Even Mr. Finn, Brendan, at one of the meetings when Mr. Pinto stood up, he says, we need more people. You got to hire more people. And your answer was, if we hire more people, it's going to be worth more than the overtime that it is now. So we're stuck in the middle of nothing. I mean, I just, I don't understand.
It's a complex answer, and it can't be done at this moment, but we've had discussions. Thank you. Anybody else from the public? Okay, we'll close that.
Okay, before we move on, so I believe we had a motion to make a correction.
You want to do it?
Yeah,
All right.
we're done with the hearing, so now would be the time.
All right, I'll make a motion to amend the errata. Street maintenance line A, 8170-51103, overtime salaries, to amend the proposed budget from $410,000 to $220,000, and the adopted budget from $390,000 to $200,000.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Voting, Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
I abstained on the first. I have to abstain on the second.
Councilmember Reinhardt.
Yes.
Vice President Fiamora.
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, on to the regular calendar. Item 1 is a resolution authorizing adoption of a capital improvement program for 5 years from July 1st, 2024 to June 30th, 2029 inclusive. A hearing has been held on this item already. Item 2 is a resolution authorizing the adoption of the operating budget for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2024 and ending June 30th, 2025, appropriating sums set forth therein and determining and fixing the real estate tax levy. Hearing has been held on this item already. Item 3 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a license agreement with Long Island Green Markets Incorporated for the purpose of hosting a farmer's market. And I believe we have a motion on this item.
Yes. Right, we were amending the motion from $75 for each day to $100 for each day.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Voting, Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember Reinhardt.
Yes.
Vice President Fiamora.
I actually have a question about this. The $100 is per vendor that comes to the city?
No, it's per event, so twice a week, they would be paying it
It's for the event.
for the event.
So they pay $100 for the entire city plaza?
Yes.
This is just to amend.
This is just to amend.
Yeah, this is just to amend.
It's not approving the motion.
Okay. Then yes, okay.
President Finn.
Yes.
Okay, continue.
Okay, so this resolution is to enter into a license agreement with Long Island Green Markets for the purpose of continuing to provide a farmer's market in the plaza for residents and visitors to Long Beach. The change to the resolution is based on comments we received the other night. I did contact the vendors, the Long Island Green Markets. They are willing to do $100 per, which is a 100% increase from last year. I believe they were only paying $50 prior per occasion. Although it does not seem like a large amount of money, the farmers market provides a service to the community that would not otherwise be provided. This rate is not out of line with what other municipalities are paying for these services. I did send out an email to you guys earlier showing what the other municipalities are either paying for this service or what they're getting from the vendors for the item. I do have John McNally who knows a little bit more if you have more questions that I can't answer.
Do we have questions from the council?
Oh, yeah.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay.
All right, Dan, I don't know when you sent the email. I did not get it. Okay, so basically, let me get this straight. This is Kennedy Plaza. We're going to be spending $2.1 million, now grant money, to make it nicer for the farmers market and the arts in the plaza. And we are, and I'm not talking about what the artists are being charged, we are allowing somebody to rent the entire Kennedy Plaza for now it will be $100 a day. $100 a day. Meantime, the vendors are being charged $75 or $100 a piece. And they're offering us a service. Don't you think anybody would be willing to do that? I mean, these people are getting, basically, they're paying us $100 and they're collecting from every vendor. All you need is one vendor and they break even. And once again, it's a situation where the city is giving away valuable stuff, and it eventually falls on the back of the taxpayers. And I just don't think it's right. And, to be told, well, this is a valuable service, nobody's saying that the vendors should go anywhere. Nobody's saying the vendors should have an increase in what they pay. It's just I don't see one company making that huge amount of profit when it's something that is not that complicated, and if nobody else will pay us more money, the city could do it.
Just like to ask you a question, Roy.
Yes.
I agree with some of what you say. I think that, the city has to be careful about what kind of money they can make off the property. But last year was $50. Why did you allow that?
I don't remember allowing it. I don't remember voting on this contract.
For the past 15 years, it's been, it got boosted up to 50.
When did we vote on this contract? Because if we voted on it, I would have been...
What has been going on is these two groups, and I'll clump the two of them together because it's the same basic conversation.
John, when did we vote on... You just said...
You have not, and I'm explaining that.
Okay.
So why you're seeing it this year for the first time is historically, before we had special events legislation, we had gone through, basically, they had been applying each year for a special events permit. And that permit was filled out. It was a $100 deposit at the beginning of every year. And because the city always viewed this as a public service, as a way to, and again, I'm going to group the two groups together on this one because it really is sort of the same conversation, to highlight our local artists, to provide healthy and nutritious food, locally grown food that otherwise might not be available. Glen Cove gets paid $650 for the entire year for their farmers market. The town of Oyster Bay pays $1,200 a year to the farmers market. You can look out the window any Saturday and see how much of an asset this is to our community, bringing in not just locals, not just highlighting local artists as a venue they wouldn't otherwise have, but as an attraction for people to come into town, stay in town, and frequent our businesses.
And why couldn't that be allowed by the city? Why couldn't that be allowed by anybody else? Why does it have to be allowed only by this group that makes
only,
maybe 100 times,
they get paid $50 a vendor. They have
50, I
two
was told it
part-time
was 70.
coordinators, they pay insurance.
I'm sorry, I was told it was 75 at least.
You were misled.
So the food vendors who have these hundreds of people buying from them pay $50 a stall?
The food vendors?
The food vendors, yes. Farmers Market sells food.
Farmers Market, correct. And
Yes.
I'm not seeing hundreds of people out here on Wednesdays. That might be the case on Saturdays.
I've been there on Saturdays. My kids love it, yes.
Right.
There are hundreds of people coming. And everybody makes money, but nobody's asking for more money from the vendors.
How much money does the city spend on this? And who would otherwise be occupying that space? Because there is a question here of,
I tell
you're
you
charging...
who, the farmers market people would be occupying the space.
Not at a cost much greater than what we have
I
right
said
now.
it doesn't have to be raised at all. It doesn't have to be raised at all, John.
So you
but
wanna
the
keep it
city could be getting the money.
What do you mean it doesn't have to be raised at all? You're objecting to raising it.
I'm objecting to the one person who rents the entire plaza, this thing we're putting $2.1 million into for 75, or they were renting it for $50 a day.
Well, I think you and I had this conversation privately, and I'm not going to talk out of school here, but what would be the number that would make you happy to keep this going? And then what happens if they just pack it up and say we can't do it for that number, and then we have nothing? That's the point.
You don't think there's anybody that could say, okay, you get this booth, you get this booth? The same people, they've been doing it for years. They know how to run it. It's not rocket science. It's a bunch of different booths, and they go there. But right now, this city we're not rich. Listen.
We're not going to get rich.
But, to
off of
be
this.
giving away this property for that kind of money, and where it would not in any way affect the vendors, in any way, and it would affect the city, it would give more money to the city. It's just not right. The people have to pay taxes here.
Okay, how much? How much are you saying? That's my question, Roy. Well,
Guys,
answered
if
it
I can
before.
interfere for a minute and just break this down from a business standpoint instead of listening to this. To John's point, and Roy's point, you both have points. In theory, it sounds like we're giving the whole plaza away for $100. I think what John is saying, and some other people are saying, is we're giving the residents the plaza for this event. And in most municipalities, farmers markets are, an added quality of life issue. Let's go to Roy's issue. Okay, the city's going to do it. Sounds great in theory. Who's the city? You're going to need people to set up. You're going to need people.
They don't set up.
You're going to need people to coordinate where to set up. So you're inbounds, in code, this and that. Again, you're going to need people there. It's all in theory. You're going to need insurance. You're going to need a cleanup crew. You're going to need a bunch of different things that, at the end of the day, would cost us more money than letting the private organization do it.
It wouldn't be anywhere close.
Let's break it down. I'll challenge you to break it down by cost. Let's just do general liability insurance for a public gathering.
City's self-insured to be.
You can have you'd have to make it additionally insured, right? Because you have private vendors there now.
They don't carry their own insurance.
So that they're uninsured?
They do carry their own insurance.
Each private vendor carries their own
No,
insurance.
the farmers markets
farmers
do.
market doesn't
But then
make the
if we were
city
dealing directly with
additionally
each of
insured.
those vendors, we would have to each make sure that they were all.
And the farmers market makes the city the additionally insured, right? Covers us.
Correct.
Correct.
Yes.
All right.
And at $50 per instance, the city's costs were entirely covered by somebody else handling this.
I get it.
So good job, Dan, getting it up. Anybody else on the council with questions?
Just two quick ones, and you sort of answered it. Do we incur any expenses from the farmer's market in terms of electricity or cleanup or?
Barricades get put at the end of Westchester Street, and about 6 boxes get picked up at the end of each instance.
Okay, so we're really not incurring any?
Correct.
Okay, and I guess this is probably a question for our corp counsel. In the agreements, it still calls for complying with COVID guidance, and we were going to look into that to see if that was still needed. What's that?
I think that was deleted.
It was deleted. Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I just think it's a question of being penny wise and pound foolish, to be honest. We're providing a service to the community. There are not any, I don't think there are any tycoons coming down here and getting us on the pickle money. But I think, the residents love it. From what we're really going to, if we did increase fees, it's not going to make a drop in the bucket. I think it's a service, free space, the city space should be space for our residents. And this Farmers Market, Arts Council, this is for our residents. And as the city, we should help provide these services.
Yeah. Thank you. Anybody else? Comments and questions from the public? Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Hi, sorry, I don't know if it's feasible,
Can I
but...
get your name first?
I'm sorry, Bernarditza Stuhlet Stern, Long Beach. Could the farmer's market on Wednesday potentially be moved to later in the day? I will see them setting up on my way to work, but they're gone by the time I come home from work. That was all.
Thank you. I agree.
We'll ask them.
I agree with you. Very good. Any others? All right, thank you. We'll close that.
Okay. Item 4 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a license agreement with Arts on the Plaza for the purpose of hosting Arts on the Plaza. I believe we have a motion on this item as well.
Same. My glasses. Make a motion to amend the cost from $50 for each day to $100 for each day Arts in the Plaza is held, to be paid to the city for a term of 6 months.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Voting on the amendment, Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester. Yes. Councilmember Reinhardt.
Yes.
Vice President Fiamora.
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes?
Okay.
So similar to the last item, this is to enter into a license agreement with Arts in the Plaza. Based on council members' concerns, this item was amended to include $100 per occasion rather than $50 per occasion. Again, this group provides a service that it would not otherwise be provided and gives the artists in the community a chance to sell their wares.
Comments from the council? Questions? Nothing?
I mean, it's the same thing as the farmer's market, to my understanding. I mean, it's not a, again, no tycoons coming down here. It's Benoit and, a bunch of those people in that community that do a lot with the kids, if you notice during events and stuff. I know that, again, I don't think it's a huge moneymaker. I don't think it's something that could be a huge moneymaker for the city or anything else. I think it's more a quality of life thing. I think what Arts in the Plaza does for the community is great. So,
I agree. I'm just going to say that it's evident that Arts in the Plaza and the Arts Council itself, they're an essential component of this city's cultural makeup. As a musician and a person who appreciates art in all forms, I feel this is something that Long Beach cannot and should not live without. I've been a happy beneficiary of the Arts and the Arts Council free concerts, some right here in Kennedy Plaza. I think that looking out on a Saturday when there's a big crowd, sampling the different arts and crafts, I think it's great for Long Beach. So I just, that's my own comment on it. Anybody else? How about the public? Comments from the public? Oh, great. Okay, close that.
Item 5 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to renew a records management system for the city's police department.
Okay, this item is to renew a contract with Impact Records Management from Central Square for the city's police department records management system. As mentioned during the capital budget hearing, we are looking at getting a new records management system. This will be a one-year extension while the PD continues to explore the possibility of switching to a new, more modern system. If you have any questions, specific questions, Rich DePalma is here, the acting police commissioner, to answer any questions you have.
Comments from the council? Questions?
Just one quick question. I had asked previously, but wasn't sure the answer. The memo requesting the resolution had the cost at $49,643.04, but you had said you thought there might have been a discount that lowered it to the 45. So was the actual cost the 45,588?
Yeah, Rich, was that, I think we removed the one item, right, from the original, which reduced it to the 45.
Yeah, I have the invoice right here.
In previous meeting?
That's what we'll confirm.
Yeah, the correct amount would be $45,588.
So it is 4, okay.
Yes.
Good, that's all. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Any questions or comments from the public? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Rich.
Closed.
Item 6 is a resolution authorizing settlement of an action brought by Kevin Holian and Deborah Holian against the city of Long Beach.
Okay, this item is to settle a lawsuit with Mr. Kevin Holian in the amount of $75,000. Corporate counsel is here if you have any questions. Just leave it at that.
Comments, questions from the council? Comments, question from the public? All right, thank you. We'll close that one as well.
Okay, before we continue to the voting, I just have to hand out you've already received these by email, but I'm required to hand these out. These are the letter from the State Controller's Office regarding the budget. So I just had to hand it out to all the members.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, on to the voting. Okay, so item 1 is a resolution authorizing the adoption of a capital improvement program for 5 years from July 1st, 2024 to June 30th, 2029 inclusive. Introduce and move the adoption of this item.
I will.
Second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember Reinhardt.
Yes.
Vice President Fiamora.
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes.
Item 2 is a resolution authorizing the adoption of the operating budget for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2024 and ending June 30th, 2025, appropriating sums set forth therein and determining and fixing the real estate tax levy. Who will introduce and move the adoption of this item as amended?
I will.
One second. We did not have a public hearing on this. All we did was have the public hearing on the errata. That's
No,
all
that
we
was public
voted
hearing
on.
on the item. The errata, the motion was to adopt the errata into the budget. That was the motion that was
The
made.
errata, yes, but not the budget. We did not have the hearing on the budget.
That was one and the same.
It was to change the budget to have the errata into it.
That-
That's all.
The hearings were one and the same.
Okay. I listened for that.
Yeah.
And I didn't see it at that.
Well, the
because I
motion said to adopt the errata into the budget.
Into the budget, yes.
Right, and we had a
That's
hearing
not-
on the budget. That became the budget.
Okay, well, I had plenty of questions, so, all right.
Who made the motion?
I made the motion.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Voting, Councilmember Bendo.
So we had the advantage of, we had the stars kind of aligned this year. If you look at the budget, the expenses went up by 2.7 million this year, but that was offset by revenue from interest from our reserve fund going up 1.3 million and the debt service going down 1.4. So, and part of that is, again, the city manager and the staff working also to keep the expenses under control, to keep, they're going to go up each year. That's just the nature of things because of contracts, but controlling how much they go up is the important thing. So, look, this is my 7th city council budget. I know for most of the people up here, this is their first, so they're on a steep learning curve. They've only been in office a few months, and they get hit with a huge budget like this. So, are there some numbers in here which raise my eyebrow? Yes, but I also believe the city manager has worked hard to get his arms around things. With that, I'll just point out there's a couple of risks in the budget. We have a one-time revenue shot this year of $2.5 million from a grant that's not going to be around next year, so there's going to be work have to be involved to make up for that. And also, if interest rates decline, our interest revenue goes down. But that being said, I think this is a win for everyone, the residents, for the work of the staff and the city manager put in to do this. So with that, I will vote yes.
Councilmember Lester.
First, I have to applaud Dan for getting it down to a 0%. As far as this goes, I'm still upset about the water going up, which would have destroyed a zero, especially when I noticed that the cost of the funding for the water, the employees went actually down this year. But Dan worked very hard to get this down, and he did. My concern, however, and I was going to raise this when I thought we were having a public hearing on the budget, was that the debt service, as John pointed out, and the risk retention fund went down $4.3 million this year. So we had $4.3 extra million. Then, like John said, we have a one-shot fund of $2.5 million. That's $6.8 million, which I'm concerned about next year. Now, I don't know what the debt service is projected for next year. I don't know what the risk retention fund is projected for next year, but I am concerned about that. I know we have additional income coming in, hopefully from the new condos at the Superblock, but nobody knows exactly what's coming in, and those projections are kind of hard to get, especially since we don't know how they're selling right now. And I also, I have a lot of faith in Mr. DeCranis that he's going to be able to use our corporate counsel, so maybe we can cut back on that $900,000 we spend on outside counsel every year. But I'm concerned, and I don't like the idea of kicking the can down the road, especially when everything is going up. Now, this particular year, our salaries went up 9.36%. That's a big increase for a 0% budget. Now, a lot of that had to do with the police, and the police contract added an extra $2 million on that. And that was, the contract was for the city was a very good contract because we didn't have to pay back pay. And that would have been millions and millions of dollars. I think it was estimated at $7 million. So it was kind of a contract that you could not say no to. But by the same token, just about every department went up this year. And with the rate of inflation as it is, I just don't see a great year next year. And I'm concerned about it, and I wanted to raise these, but, you know, we're not doing that. So I'm going to vote no on this. And by the same token, I'm going to applaud Dan for really getting it where he wanted to get it, and the rest of the council for really pushing him to get it to the 0%.
Councilmember Reinhardt.
So I'm really excited, and I think the residents of Long Beach should be excited too. This is the first time in 10 years there will be a 0% tax increase. And I think that's a great job, and I thank our city manager, I thank our council, I thank the CSEA for partnering with us and working with us, and our comptroller. But most of all, let's face it, for our residents, yes, of course, there's always going to be concerns for next year, but we feel like that we have the right city manager and the right staff to tackle those issues going forward. Again, 0% tax increase, it should be something to be lauded and excited about. I vote yes.
Vice President Fiamora.
I agree with Mike. I think it's an exciting day. I think the residents of Long Beach should be excited. It's a win for the entire city. And I applaud you, Dan. I know that, there was $2.7 million talked about in expenses, and I believe it was 2.3 to catch up to the cops contract that was made from last year. So how you found that money and did what you did, I'd hire you any day of the week in my company. Thank you. So I want to say also with next year, you handle budgets like you handle any market. You do it with a forecast of what you know and then the things you don't know. Inflation, interest rates, so on and so forth. But I know that in the budget for next year, a lot of the future revenue was done very conservatively, which gave us a great cushion, and that hasn't been a practice of the past, so I applaud you for that. I want to thank our controller, the CSEA, my fellow council members, and everybody else who helped out with the budget. Again, I think it's a celebration. First time in 10 years, 0% tax hike, so great for Long Beach. Yes.
President Finn.
I've already stated how enthusiastic I am about this and how I feel that this is a victory for the residents and the taxpayers. To address some of those other issues, not only do we have the right city manager with Dan, he's got the acumen and he's got the skills that really, I think, have helped this budget process go fairly smoothly. Ina has been here, as I said, for many years, and she's obviously very good at what she does as well. I think the two of them worked as a team. The CSEA is part of that team, and I'm very grateful for that, and I know that the council is too. Dan's worked very hard to manage the overtime. He is on top of the overtime, and yes, that is a concern. It's always a concern in municipal politics and municipal government. He and Ina have been conservative, as Chris just said, in the projection in terms of revenue. I believe that these conservative projections, coupled with a renewed and intense effort to increase these revenues, will bode well for our next budget. I think we should celebrate this budget, but you're right to be caustic about the coming budget. I am as well, but I feel that this has been a great process, and I'm very pleased. I thank you, Dan. I thank Ina if you're watching on TV. Appreciate it, and I appreciate the CSEA. Of course, I vote yes.
Okay, item 3 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a license agreement with Long Island Green Markets Incorporated for the purpose of hosting a farmer's market. Who introduced and move the adoption of this item as amended?
I will.
Second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
No.
Councilmember Reinhardt,
Yes.
Vice President Fiamora,
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes.
Item 4 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a license agreement with Arts on the Plaza Incorporated for the purpose of hosting Arts on the Plaza. Who would introduce and move the adoption of this item?
I will.
Second?
Second.
Voting, Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
No.
Councilmember Reinhardt.
Yes.
Vice President Fiamora.
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes.
Item 5 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to renew a records management system for the city's police department. Who will introduce and move the adoption of this item?
I will.
Second?
Who got the first one? I'll second it.
Voting, Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember Reinhardt.
Yes.
Vice President Fiamora.
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes.
And finally, item 6 is a resolution authorizing settlement of an action brought by Kevin Holian and Deborah Holian against the city of Long Beach. Would you just move the adoption of this item?
I do.
Second?
Second.
Voting, Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember Reinhardt.
Yes.
Vice President Fiamora.
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes.
Okay, the city manager's monthly personnel report has been filed by the city clerk. Who will make a motion to close the meeting?
I will.
Second?
Second.
We got that, okay. Voting, Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember Reinhardt.
Yes.
Vice President Fiamora.
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes.
Just one quick piece of housekeeping, folks, and for the folks at home. Since the budget has been adopted, the special meeting that was scheduled on the schedule for if necessary is no longer necessary, so there will not be a city council meeting next Tuesday.
Are you sure?
There will not be a city council meeting on the budget next Tuesday. If you want to call a special one for another purpose,
Oh, no, I was joking.
that's something else.
I was
But
joking, Dave.
there will not be one for the budget next Tuesday.
I got a cold next Tuesday.
Yes. Before we do good and welfare, Dan is going to make one statement.
Yeah, I forgot to say during this process, although I thanked, the comptroller, I thanked our unions, our department heads were instrumental in making the 0% budget happen. They really did a great job. They all worked with us. Every single one of them understood the goal and really kicked in to make sure that they did a great job to make sure that the budget was reached at a 0% tax increase. So thank you to each of you. I know most of you are here. Thank you for making that happen.
Thank you. Okay, good and welfare, Ron Paganini.
Ron Paganini, 62 Harmon. Yeah, I'm trying to wipe out all my stuff tonight, you know what I mean? Whatever I say here, is basically for me and the taxpayer. There's nothing here personal against any individual. I mean, I don't do that. I don't play that game, but that's how I felt and I feel. But listen, we'll see what happens. So I have some questions. 2 questions, actually. The last meeting I asked Mr. Finn about sending a letter to the New York State and Equinor, the company who's doing the Empire 2 wind farm, basically stating that this city was never basically a, how would I say it? Let's put it this way. The study that was done, the government study that was done, that was paid for by the time for the climate people, was a 6-year plan, and it stated basically that this is the North American Supergrid study, that they should not go through the underground infrastructure. Because if it fails, or when it fails, it will destroy all our water pipe. It actually gets into the water pipe. The electricity actually gets through the pipe in the water, and the electricity will go throughout the city. We won't know that. So that's why that's this plan, the study. There's no other study. So I asked to send a letter according to the North American study, the federal study, what it said, and take it from there. So the next question I have is about the city council meetings here. With the comments, you know, when the new council came in, the comments were basically working. So if you had a comment, you can comment, and it would go down the list, and people, you know, on the internet. Then all of a sudden it stopped. There's no more comments on the video. Yeah, it doesn't. In other words, I can't make comments and everybody sees it.
Are you talking on YouTube, Ronnie?
Yeah, on the YouTube.
No, you can't
Right there.
Oh, you have all the comments?
They've never been turned off. Yeah, they're on there.
Yeah, I don't see it at all. I don't know if anybody in the audience.
There's a whole several pages of them tonight.
All right, so, I mean, maybe it's working, but I can't get it. You know what I mean? So, I don't know why. So if it's working, it's working. Maybe it's me. But anyway, about the letters, like I said, I think they're very important to the state and Equinor to get it out there about the study. This is all we got. So I don't know where you are with it, you know.
I'll answer.
Okay.
I've spoken from the podium, and I've spoken to you in person
Yeah.
on the phone. I totally agree with you. I agree that a letter, I'm composing a letter.
Okay.
Our corporation counsel, Frank,
Yeah.
just came on board. We've had a very, very busy and hectic
Yeah.
2 weeks. I didn't want to push the letter on him this week because we were doing the budget,
All right.
but I have it. Of course, I'm not going to send it without his approval.
Yeah.
Approval in terms of, you know, legalistic matters. In terms of, I agree with you. Equinor, you know, they're in the process of, I guess, rebidding. I'm not sure about this, but, you know, this is something. So I agree with you, and that letter will be written.
Yeah, it just states the study.
Yeah.
You know, basically that was done. If they have another study that says, hey, no, there's no problem about your underground infrastructure, then let them put it in writing. That's all we want, you know what I mean? Let them deny it, whatever they want to do, but that North American super grid study, you have the copy of it.
I do.
From the Climate Institute. You know, it's a real study, so let's see what happens, but next meeting, maybe, you know, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ronnie. Sarah Martinassi? Gone?
She passed.
Okay. Liz Treston? There you go, Dave. Okay.
Well, this seems like very old times, not being able to see anyone, but, nah, it's okay, thanks. Can you just hand this to Dave? The last one. Oh. Thank you. Thank you, Dave. That is from, I don't know if you were able, oh, sorry, Elizabeth Treston, Long Beach, New York. I don't know if everyone got the opportunity to read Newsday in the last couple of weeks, but they're finally catching on. As you know, I've been involved with flood insurance since 2013, or maybe you don't. Around Bigot's Border, 2012, HIPAA Act, 2014, and Risk Point 2.0. This is not a party issue, it is a policy issue. Since those years, I have been involved with the CFSI. It's based in New Orleans, I've been involved with 11 state lawsuits, active in monthly meetings that have included Adam Schiff, Scalise, Kennedy, Cassidy, etc., and many other government officials at various states and local levels across the nation, and FEMA itself. Risk 2.0 as started, I've analyzed many policies over Long Island, found concerning issues, particularly in our elevated home policies. And Newsday finally has printed exactly what myself and my colleagues have concluded over 2 years ago. What it does not include, however, is that the most expensive policies are some of the ones right here on the South Shore, including Long Beach. In our elevated homes, because of the rating factors and the methodology FEMA is using and keeping it to themselves, despite our alliance asking the many questions. This includes only one New York congressman, and he isn't ours. Thank you, Congressman Garbarino. The advocates have multiple conversations with FEMA itself, OST, and have finally figured out that no one knows what the hell they're talking about. This Thursday, I finally have a limited meeting with FEMA advocates through their request to discuss these policies. The fact that FEMA NYPA has either eliminated or severely reduced mitigation discounts on elevation is something long discussed and advocated on. How this is allowed is astounding to us. ICC and elevation programs, including the hazard mitigation programs, run into the hundreds of millions of dollars is just stunning. How can I let this insanity of reducing an expensive and interruptive form of mitigation that often causes substantial improvements, resulting in a higher value of our home than our taxes, which are now includes our cost replacements. Yet FEMA is capping us at $250K. I'll wrap up. I'm asking that you join me in trying to get FEMA to listen to us. And in order to do that, I need you to, one, start answering your emails, and two, ask Schumer, ask Esposito to do their jobs. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you.
Can I just,
Yeah.
I'm going to translate from flood expert to plain English because I'm guessing some people in the room might not understand what Liz is getting at. FEMA started something called Flood 2.0. They're changing flood insurance. So for those of us like me and probably others in this room who emptied their bank accounts to elevate their homes, what they're now saying is that doesn't count anymore. And what they're doing is they're now reevaluating your flood insurance based on the risk where you are, whether you mitigate it or not. You'll get some discount. So if you may remember, I remember this clearly when the governor said, if you elevate your house and don't change the footprint, just elevate it, your taxes won't change. And then a year later, I got reassessed and my taxes skyrocketed, and the amount my flood insurance went down, my taxes went up. So what this Flood 2.0 is basically, it almost negates why you elevated your home, and your flood insurance rates will start to go up again. So that's what Liz is trying to point out, that it's kind of been percolating in the background. People in New York haven't been paying much attention to it. Other parts of the country, especially down south in Louisiana, they've been fighting this. New York's kind of been behind on this one, and that's what she's screaming about, trying to get people in New York to start paying attention.
Right, so what is it going to be? It has to be a House bill in Congress? Is it a state? I mean, this is FEMA, it's a federal rule, so we have to deal with Congress and the Senate? Good luck, right? Okay? Yeah, you bet. Thanks. Mike Delory still here?
Don't see him.
Okay. Eileen Hessian? Karen Riskin? I didn't see you back there, Karen.
You should know where he is.
Hi, good evening. I'm Karen Riskin. Lived in Long Beach 37 years, and I'm very passionate about Long Beach. I have a few papers here I'd like to share with you so you could follow along, if that please. Thank you. There was an article Saturday about the Long Island offshore farms receiving approval to go ahead with the wind turbines. Well, honestly, I have a few things I highlighted. I'm not going to go into the whole big thing because I expect you'll read it. The first thing is the Public Service Commission approved a certificate to allow the development Equinor to begin construction this month. That's a rush. I mean, that's like uncanny. Then you have supposed to build 3 miles from the shore, where it'll come 3 miles from the shore. People swim in the water. And they're going to start working in the middle of the season. That's going to lose Long Beach money. Secondly, the size of the turbines. 54 turbines at the height of 886 feet and to the tip of the turbine blades. 15 megawatts each. Then you have here, they're talking about the price increase. They're saying $2.09. I have literature at home, which I should have brought, but I didn't, for 65% rate increases. $2.09, they're joking. And then there's another aspect is that they're saying that with the high costs of the wind turbines, it's going to be a big financial gain to Norway-based Equinor. And what do we get? Nothing. We don't get use of the electricity. It goes beyond. We have the burden of destroying our town, our commerce. It has the burden of screwing up the school systems, routing sites, everything. There's so much that's going to be damaged from it. And Long Beach is going to lose big time, not just because we don't want it, but it's going to destroy everything that we have all put together, that we care about. And the last thing is that the last paragraph clearly states that the wind farm developers have declined to release any similar all-in cost for Empire Wind or Sunrise Wind. They have no idea what it's going to cost them to do it. So they may start a project and then later decide to walk away from it. And what are we stuck with? A mess.
Yeah. I'll speak for myself. I agree with just about everything you said. But this is not applicable to us, luckily, right now. But
Well, actually, I had an idea.
well, it's
of-
Brooklyn. I mean, it's a Brooklyn project. It's not.
Brooklyn is fighting also. We're in touch with them.
Excuse me.
Brooklyn is fighting hard, but they're not getting as far as we are, and we are getting some places. But the bottom line is, we're reaching out for the city council to please do a conference and public conference and then come out and say what we feel and what we want and what we don't want. Let them know what the community wants.
We have. A letter was composed and written and sent.
But it has, I'm aware of that.
Okay.
Forgive me for interrupting, because I know it's
Question.
late for everybody. But we love Long Beach. We all do. If we do a public conference versus a letter, it's going to go further on occasion, because you see people standing there, taking the time.
This is the process that goes with the Article 7. So, I mean, we had that in October. Everybody got up and spoke. And Councilman Bendo made a very good, eloquent position statement. I think it was evident what Long Beach wanted or didn't want. I mean, I think that this article is about
But-
Brooklyn.
No, this isn't about Brooklyn. This is about Long Beach.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Well, that's it for this council meeting. I think I'm very happy with the budget. Thank you very much, Dan and Ina, and the rest of the group that worked, all the department heads. Thank you very much for everybody who came out. Please arrive home safely. Have a good night.